Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast Football Edition, week number 10, brought to you by our primary sponsor, 3Chord. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today by Keith Brown, AJ Fairchild, and Tony Fairchild. So thanks again for coming on the show, guys. And guys, week 10, last week of the regular season. It's already here, and playoffs are right around the corner. Thoughts going into this week?
Hard to believe. Just moving so quick.
Looking forward to tonight's episode here. It's going to be fantastic getting into talking about playoffs. Really looking forward to seeing what we have in store tonight.
Playoffs?
Yeah,
talking about playoffs?
That's right. We will be talking a lot about playoffs, all kinds of predictions, projections, things like that. Obviously, once the brackets are released, we can talk about that as well. But, we got a lot of special guests tonight. Michael Hearn's coming on, as well as Drew Pastor is going to be calling in. So a lot of excitement coming on tonight. Yep. All right, let's go ahead. Let's look at how we did for last week's picks. And Logan and Keith finished first for the week with a 17-2 record. Also, everyone else tied at 16-3. So everyone had a pretty good week overall. Matthew still sits at number one with a 133-33 record. Logan in second with a 131-35 record. Keith in third with a 130-36 record. Tony in fourth with a 127-39 record. And AJ and Bryce still tied for last and in fourth place for 123-43 record. So Keith, I'll let you have the spotlight since you've tied with me last week. Yep. So any words of wisdom for picking?
No words of wisdom, but honestly, probably the most surprise game that I saw last week was Elmwood just destroying Eden.
Yeah. That was a shocker.
I couldn't believe that, but a good season, still trailing. Can't seem to catch Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew, he's just been on top. I think he's pretty much led since, maybe week 3 or 4. And
yes.
It's been playing catch up the whole time. So Matthew's doing an excellent job, but the pack is surely right behind. So, all right.
Well, everybody but AJ.
And Bryce. That's
Bryce.
true, too. So.
I'm not dead last. We are tied for last. Hey, I won it last year, so I thought I'd give you guys a chance this year. There you go.
I gotcha.
hey, new season. We're not talking about the past anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we'll go into week 9 game recaps. This week we won't cover everyone just because there's a lot of blowouts and we have a lot of content to get to. But we'll go ahead. We'll start with NWO Sports Game of the Week, and that was Bryan at Wason, a huge NWOAL matchup. And Wason, they came up winners here, 27-26. So congratulations to them. We kind of talked about Wason getting over that hill and that hump on that roller coaster, and this is a big win for them, especially against a quality Bryan team. Wason actually won this game thanks to a stop 2-point conversion by Bryan with just a little over 2 minutes left in the game. What a huge win again for the Wason Indians. And Wason was up 13-6 at halftime. Looking at total offense, Wason had 382 yards, 213 of those passing. Bryan had 291 yards, 184 rushing. Third down efficiency, Wason was 5 of 11, 45%. Bryan was 7 of 13, 54%. That's phenomenal, especially for high school programs. Turnover battle, Wason had 0, and Bryan had 1 with an interception. So, breaking down some top players of note, Wason quarterback Trey Parsons has really had a excellent season, but you don't really hear about him all that much, so we're going to give him some credit here. It was 12 of 20, 60%, 213 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He had 4 carries for 30 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. I believe he's actually the league leading passer this season as well, and we can check on that later as well. Wide receiver, defensive back, kicker, Mr. Showtime himself, as I always say. I feel like we talk about him every week. Tyson Rodriguez, 6 receptions, 169 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He scored all but 6 points for the Indians. He also had 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss on defense, and he made 2 field goals, good at 32 and 31 yards. Linebacker Austin Kovar had 8 tackles, which led the team. And defensive back Braylon Miller for the Indians had 4 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 interception. Some key players from Bryan: running back Sam Harrell, 24 carries, 85 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Quarterback Jace Kepler was 5 of 13, 110 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He did have 1 interception, but he also had 11 carries for 56 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Maddox Langendorfer had 2 receptions, 85 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So, guys, thoughts on this big Bryan at Wason matchup?
I was actually kind of surprised. I wasn't sure that Wason would be able to pull that out, and we talked about it last week. Them not being able to win a big game, and I didn't. I guess I never realized that Bryan went for a 2-point conversion, didn't get it. So, you always wonder about those at time and time when it happens. Do you go for 2? Do you not go for 2?
And when it doesn't work out for you, you always have that regret in the back of your head.
I should have just kicked it. But, when the weather was bad, too, I'm sure, I don't know what the weather was like at Wason, but I know Edison, it was raining, so who knows? But
Keith, AJ,
What a great game by Trey Parsons there. It says Tyson Rodriguez had 6 points, or he was only responsible or not responsible for 6 points, but Trey Parsons was responsible for a large portion of their points too, between the 2 passing touchdowns and the rushing touchdown. That's 21 points of his that came off, was up on the board. So he's responsible for quite a bit as well. But overall, great game from Tyson. Trey.
Yeah, surprised Wason on defense actually shut down Jace Kepler, it seems like, under 100. Yeah, the weather, I would say, it was wet, but it wasn't as windy as it was the previous Friday. And like AJ said, you look, Tyson Rodriguez is silently throwing his name hat. I don't know if they actually award like an offensive MVP in the NWAL, but quietly, he is just like Mr. Do-It-All every single week.
Well, the other thing, too, I look at, you talked about shutting down Jace Kepler. Talk about shutting down Sam Harold, running back for Bryan. Yep. That dude is leading the league in rushing yards, and he has always averaged, I feel like he's averaged 185, 200 rushing yards a game. He goes out there, 24 carries, 85 rushing yards, and weather does play a factor in things, but typically teams tend to run the ball better when there's rain and there's harsh weather. But, kudos to Wason's defense. And just going back to quarterback Trey Parsons for the Indians, he just goes out there every single game. He's so efficient. He may not throw out the big flashy, 300 to 400 passing yards a game, like 4 or 5 passing touchdowns, but he is consistently going out there. He'll throw at 60 to 70% completion percentage, and he'll always take care of that offense and take care of the rock, which is the most important thing when you're running an offense.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Another NWAL matchup here. Patrick Henry at Archbold, and Archbold won this one 59-22. This game was tight in the first half, with the score being 23-22 at one time late in the second quarter. Archbold would score 36 unanswered points for the rest of the game and shut out Patrick Henry's offense in the second half. Special teams played a huge role in this one as well with Archbold's Jack Hurst. He returned a kick 75 yards for a touchdown, and Steven Diller scored from 20 yards out on a block punt. Halftime score, Archbold was up 37-22. Looking at total offense, Archbold had 360 yards, 211 of those rushing. Patrick Henry had 286 yards, 160 of those passing. Turnover battle, Archbold had 0. Patrick Henry had 4, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles. And we always talk about the turnover battle. It's hard to win games when you turn the rock over. So let's look at the top players of note. Looking from Archbold, quarterback Cade Brenner, 10 of 15, 67%. He had 146 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and he had 5 carries for 55 rushing yards. And I just wanted to give a shout out, too, to the offensive line for Archbold. And we saw them play in person against Tenora, but the guys up front, Mason Siegel, Brian Burrows, Wyatt Ribke, Jaden Gendler, and Titus Rufenacht, they only allowed 1 sack this game. And Patrick Henry has one of the best pass rushers in Northwest Ohio, and that would be in Mr. Grant Smith. He currently has 17 sacks on the year. And those guys up front, they held them to only 1 sack, and they paved the way for 360 yards of total offense. So excellent job from those guys in the trenches. Running back, kick returner Jack Hurst, he had 5 carries, 127 rushing yards, good for 25.4 yards a carry with 1 rushing touchdown, 2 receptions, 49 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and he had a kick return for 75 yards and a touchdown as well. One of the most explosive players in Northwest Ohio this season. And wide receiver Brody Bailey and Josiah Gomez each had 1 touchdown reception apiece. Some key players from Patrick Henry. Wide receiver Thomas Smith had a career day, 3 receptions, 123 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and one of those, I'm going to attach the clip. The touchdown was impressive as Thomas went up and brought it down. It was kind of one-handed. He stumbled, but he still managed to score from 65 yards out. It was really impressive. Quarterback Lincoln Krieger was 6 of 17, 157 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, but he had 12 carries for 9 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. So thoughts on this game here?
Oh, just we kind of talked about this game last week being a tight one. Didn't know how it was going to go without Nash Meyer being there for Patrick Henry. And to see the score that was 23-22 at halftime, that's more what I was expecting for the whole game. I wasn't expecting Archbold to walk away with it in the second half. But, like you said, when you have 4 turnovers, that's going to just absolutely devastate your offense. And not only devastate your offense, but, keep your defense on the field longer, which is going to tire them out and allow Archbold to just start racking up points, and it's going to end up hurting. The other thing that I saw was special teams. We haven't talked about that a ton this year, but man, are they important, especially as you get to the week 9, week 10, getting into playoffs. A field goal or a punt return or a kick return could mean, the remainder of your season if you're able to secure that.
And in terms of special teams, especially in the return game, so punt return, kick return. I think Archbold has the best in Northwest Ohio. I don't know exactly the numbers, but Jack Hurst, I'm trying to think of the other one, Miller, they have so many kick returns for scores and big gains. And you talk about momentum, those can really change the whole entire outcome of games. And those two have been doing a really nice job as well. So
yeah, you kind of took the words from my mouth, Logan. I was going to ask, does Archbold score a touchdown on a kickoff or a punt return every single week? I mean, it certainly seems like it. And you can see the focal point of the Archbold defense when you see Houston Miranda and Landon Johnson combined for 38 total yards. That's going to be a good day for you.
Yeah, I was just looking at that same stat, Keith. That's what I kind of blew my mind when I saw Miranda only ran for 20 yards. But yeah, AJ, you hit the nail on the head. The special teams, the 4 turnovers, the 2 special teams touchdowns they scored. Yeah, just putting all that together, it's going to be hard to beat that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, too, we looked, and I think this game was really going to determine how Patrick Henry plays in the playoffs. I think they were competitive in this game. Yep. You know, they're without their starting quarterback. Their run attack got shut down a little bit with Miranda only having 20 rushing yards, and he's been another excellent player this year for them and in the NWO itself. But you got to remember, too, Archbold is 2 divisions higher than Patrick Henry as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So competition for Patrick Henry. And I will say that region is tough. It's probably one of the more competitive regions looking at it for playoffs overall. But I think Patrick Henry, they show they can still have some fight. Still have really good talent and athletes as well. So I don't think you necessarily count them out come playoff time.
No, not at all.
Not.
All right, let's move on to the next game. We're looking at Wayne Trace at Ayersville, and this was a big Green Meadows Conference matchup. And Ayersville jumped out into a 32-6 halftime lead. The Raiders did not hold back as they outscored the Pilots 29-6 in the second half thanks to 21 fourth quarter points. So, like we said, this game was close with Ayersville only winning 38-35. Total yards, Ayersville had 355 yards. 333 of those were rushing, which Ayersville has really ran the rock here as of late. Wayne Trace had 377, 228 of those passing. Turnover battle, Ayersville had 1 with a fumble, and Wayne Trace had 3, 2 fumbles and 1 interception. And just wanted to say, too, prayers to Ayersville's Torrin Knieven. He had a pretty bad injury as well, but you always hate to see athletes go down, but he'll definitely have a bright future ahead of him. So just wanted to say, keeping him in our thoughts. So
definitely.
Looking at some key players from Ayersville, running back Torrin Knieven himself, he had 18 carries, 155 rushing yards, 8.6 yards a carry with 2 rushing touchdowns. Running back Abe Delano, 21 carries, 155 rushing yards, 7.4 yards a carry with 2 rushing touchdowns. So it's ironic. Their stats were nearly identical.
I was going to say, yeah.
Across the board. And then quarterback Lucas Fishball was 4-7, 57%. He had 22 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown to wide receiver Jacob Miller. From Wayne Trace, running back Tucker Antone, 14 carries, 131 rushing yards, 9.4 yards a carry, and 1 rushing touchdown. And he's one that has really came into his own here in the last half of the season in that running attack for Wayne Trace. Quarterback Kyle Stoller was 16 of 29, 55%. He had 228 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. Wide receiver linebacker Cole Moorhead, 4 receptions, 99 receiving yards, and he had a 71-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown on defense. And wide receiver Hudson Myers led the team with 7 receptions, 62 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So thoughts on the Wayne Trace at Ayersville matchup?
Yes, just to reiterate what Logan said, we wish the best for Torrin because that's an unfortunate injury. And he was having a fantastic season, leading the GMC in rushing, and he was getting better and better every single week. As far as this game goes, Ayersville, you would think had the game in hand at halftime, 32-6. Then Torrin was injured, I believe, right after half. So you don't know mentally how focused are you if you're on the field for Ayersville? Are you really concentrating on the game at hand and you're worried about your teammate who you've seen down on the field for probably 20 minutes, it seemed? But heck of a comeback by Wayne Trace. But then again, like I said, where is your mind actually in the game if you're an Ayersville Pilot? But it's just kind of looking ahead, kind of a season-altering injury for the Pilots. I mean, they were playing some of the best ball in the area after the loss to Sonora. Like, their rushing game was just Yeah, I mean, you couldn't stop them.
That's what I was going to comment on, too. The last few weeks, their rushing attack, they've been averaging 300-plus yards a game running the ball, and he was a big component in that. You know, they get Abe Delano in there as well, which they've kind of messed around with him, throwing him out on the perimeter at wide receiver. But I think that he's going to really fall into that number one running back role for Ayersville now. But, yeah, it's just, you know, it's unfortunate for Ayersville, but Ayersville, they still have that big and they have that bad offensive line, too. So those guys up front, I'm sure they're going to go out there and they're going to fight for their brother and really kind of help them come playoff time. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, just looking at the stats, looks like Wayne Trace made a good halftime adjustment. Finally got a way to, you know, and if Horn went down right after half, like you said, Keith, you know, that definitely going to put a hamper on Ayersville's offense. And now, like, you know, AJ was mentioning, your defense is on the field a lot more. And if they made some adjustments, you know, Wayne Trace kind of got some things rolling there, just came up a little bit short at the end.
All right, let's move on to the next game, and this is Lima Shawnee at Ottawa-Glandorf. Ottawa-Glandorf won this one by 1 point, 16-15. This was Ottawa-Glandorf's first win of the season, so congratulations to them. I know, obviously, Ottawa-Glandorf's used to more wins, but, hey, if you can get one on the board, you got to start somewhere, and they did just that. Lima Shawnee was actually up 8-3 at halftime. Total yards, Ottawa-Glandorf had 339 with 225 passing. Lima Shawnee had 323 with 178 rushing. Turnovers, Ottawa-Glandorf had 2 with 1 fumble, 1 interception. Shawnee had 2 with 2 fumbles. And Ottawa-Glandorf, some top players. Quarterback Peyton Coleman, 17 of 34, 50%. He was 225 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns with 1 interception. Wide receiver Grant Schroeder, 11 receptions, 112 receiving yards. Wide receiver Griffin Seamet and Ethan Metzger both had 1 receiving touchdown apiece. So, guys, thoughts on Ottawa-Glandorf and Shawnee game?
Just congrats on OG for getting that first win.
Yeah, you know, we kind of talked about it. It seems like they're a better team than what their record shows, and it's nice for them to finally get that win to kind of, you know, prove something to themselves.
It is very good to see OG in the win column. It's kind of one of the more prouder programs in that area. It's similar for, say, like Tenora going 1-10 or 1-9 and 0-10 and back-to-back seasons. They have a similar program, like just as a long-term win every season. Then you have a couple bad seasons, but it's good to see OG back in the win column. If it's just one.
And I think Coach Ken Schreiner is 1 away from 200. I think that's what I was told as well. So this week they play Defiance. So Ottawa-Glandorf has a lot to play for and try to get their head coach to number 200. So it'll be interesting to see how things turn out, and we'll kind of discuss that later in the podcast. Next game, Evergreen at Swan, and this one was close. Again, there's some of these games that were just neck and neck the entire way through. Evergreen won 30-21. Halftime score, Evergreen was up just 10-7. Total yards, Evergreen racked up 349 with 183 of those rushing. Swanton had 170 with 95 rushing. Turnovers, Evergreen had 1 with a fumble. Swanton had 3 with 2 fumbles and 1 interception. Some key players from Evergreen, running back kicker Max Mossing had 20 carries, 147 rushing yards, good for 7.4 yards a carry with 2 rushing touchdowns, and he was 1 of 1 for field goals and had a 29-yarder. Quarterback Bryce Bolger was 10 of 18, 56% completion percentage, 166 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns. Wide receiver Riley Dunbar had 3 receptions, 51 receiving yards. Wide receiver Colton Robertson, he had 5 receptions, which led the team for 69 receiving yards. And last wide receiver Ryder Hudick had 1 reception for 42 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, I did not have any Swanton stats, but thoughts on the Evergreen at Swanton game?
I'm sure it's nice from Swanton's point of view to be able to come out and, you know, fight a little bit. You know, they've been playing the gauntlet that is the NWAL, where they haven't really had any breathing room. So at least they're able to come out and put up a little bit of a fight against Evergreen. Unfortunately, still coming away with a loss, but you know, keep fighting in there, Swanton, and hanging in there.
Yep. Good to see Evergreen in the win column. I think they had 5 straight losses and 5 straight games where they scored under 10 points. So good to see Evergreen get the W.
And one thing I think we all forget is Evergreen actually beat Elmwood at the beginning of the season.
Yes, they did.
And Elmwood just beat up on Eden. So it's kind of crazy to see where things are at in the area. But that was just kind of an interesting point,
they
I
beat
thought.
them pretty handily.
Yeah, they did. So, all right.
Elmwood, speaking of.
Right. Let's move on to the next game here. Green Meadows Conference, Hicksville at Fairview. Fairview won this one big, 35-0. They shut out the Aces. Fairview jumped out early. They were actually up 35-0. Total yards, Fairview had 336 with 195 rushing. Can't believe I'm saying that. Hicksville had 83 yards with 49 passing. Turnovers, Fairview had 1 with an interception. Hicksville had 1 with an interception. Some top players, from Fairview. Quarterback William Zedike was 9 of 18, 50%, 129 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns with the 1 interception, 12 carries for 104 rushing yards. Wide receiver Logan Ollinger, 3 receptions, 49 receiving yards with 1 receiving touchdown. He had 5 carries as well, running the ball with 14 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. And wide receiver Gavin Garza had 3 receptions for 23 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. From Hicksville, wide receiver Owen Stuckey had 4 receptions for 33 receiving yards. So, guys, thoughts on this GMC matchup here?
Not surprised. I kind of just figured Fairview would take that one. Zedike is kind of doing everything for the Fairview right now, isn't he?
That's why I said I'm surprised that rushing was actually the leading yardage gainer for the Apaches, because usually we've seen William Zedike throw the ball 40, 50 times at sometimes. But
right, and I know it was raining again this past Friday, but he almost had more rushing yards than he did passing yards, which I would never have guessed from Fairview.
Right. Yeah, about the last 3 quarterbacks for Fairview, like dual threat quarterbacks. So the sophomore Zedike should be pretty good for the next 2 years, along with the entire Fairview program.
And that's something we've seen. Fairview is just kind of one of those up-and-coming programs. Yep. They've got a couple wins under their belt after last year going 0-10. So the kids have to be feeling good at this point. Most of the kids that are playing are freshmen and sophomores as well. So there's a lot of young talent coming up from Fairview. And we talked on some of the hot takes. I believe it was either last week or the week before. But give Fairview about 2 years. I'd say next year, probably not quite yet. 2 years, and I think they're competing for a Green Meadows Conference title.
Yep. I think 2 years from now, they could be very easily sitting in the same place that Antwerp's sitting right now, with a very solid senior class leading the forefront of the GMC in about 2 years from now.
And I would just about call that now. I think Fairview's going to be there next year.
Next year.
I think next year they're going to be.
And I believe they have some good quality athletes in junior high as well. I mean, I think you guys played them.
Yep.
And Sonora Junior High played them, and so there's a lot of talent coming up. And if you're an Apache fan, you should have a lot to be excited about, because there's some big things to come.
Yep.
Especially with Coach Rakes, coming back and leading that program now. There's a lot to be excited for.
Definitely.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Looking at Napoleon at Bowling Green, the Northern Lakes League matchup. Napoleon won this one 21-0, and this win sets up a Cardinal division of the Northern Lakes League Championship with Southview this coming week. So a big game. This win makes a 5-game win streak for the Wildcats after starting the year 0-4. And I just want to say congratulations to Napoleon, because we keep saying time and time again, I know there were some people that were breathing down the necks of all the players, the coaches of that staff, and they have done an excellent job facing adversity, turning things around, and now you put yourself in a chance for a playoff berth, and I believe they have a pretty good shot, we'll talk about it later, for home field game for the first game, as well as a conference championship. You couldn't ask for much more, especially how the season started. So looking at some other things from this game, total yards, Napoleon had 295 with 160 passing. Bowling Green had 160 yards with 154 rushing. Turnovers, Napoleon had 1 fumble. Bowling Green had 2 with 1 fumble and 1 interception. And some top players from Napoleon, quarterback Owen Espinoza, 11 of 16, 69%, 160 passing yards with 3 passing touchdowns. Wide receiver Trey Rubenstein, 6 receptions, 101 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. And that receiving touchdown has gotten a lot of talk because it was awesome.
Amazing.
Yes, it was amazing. Awesome fade into the end zone, one-handed catch, and he came down with it. It was, top play all over different media.
Yep.
So we'll attach that clip here as well. So we know what Trey Rubenstein's capable of, and he just keeps on showing it when he gets the opportunity to. And running back Devin Dietrich, 3 receptions, 41 receiving yards with 2 receiving touchdowns. Just one more point from me. Quarterback Owen Espinoza is really doing a nice job for the Wildcats. And, some games you may see the Wildcats go out, they'll run the ball for 200-300 yards. Some games you'll see them, they'll come out and they'll pass a little bit more. So very dynamic, especially coming into the season, as Napoleon ran the ball at I believe it was 73% that they ran the ball last season.
Right.
So really kind of developing that offense and adapting to who their athletes are. Coach Sweary's doing a nice job of that too. So
Definitely.
Thoughts on the Napoleon Bowling Green game?
Yeah, again, congratulations to Coach Wert. He took a lot of heat the first 2 or 3 weeks, and it's good that he can come back and rebound with a solid season and a playoff game. Outside chance of hosting it, but you're in the playoffs regardless. And following up on your point about Owen Espinoza, he is kind of like Trey Parsons in a way. He just comes.
He is, yes.
Every single Friday. He's not flashy, puts up solid numbers, and is leading the Wildcats into the playoffs. And another thing, which there's a website, called Ohio Helmets, and they just posted the Napoleon helmet, and you'd be surprised how many people did not actually realize that was, like, as Tony said a couple episodes ago, that Napoleon actually had red in their colors, and that was a Napoleon helmet.
Yeah, a lot of people have talked about that around the area, and I think it's something different, something nice, and it's kind of sparked some interest in the Wildcat program as well.
Right. Now like it's sitting out there on social media, like at an Ohio and nationwide thing. It's like, wait a minute, this is pretty awesome.
They always talk about if you look good, you play good. It's kind of one of the things I always joke around with about coaching girls softball. They always like, well, you look good, we'll play good. But it's the same way with football. Just you take a little bit of pride in your uniform, and you got some neat stuff, like that decals inside of your helmet. Like Tenora's got the big T now. It looks pretty cool. And kids just take pride in that, And so if you got something that's neat, it can kind of spark a little drive in the kids. But, Napoleon, like you guys have both said it, Coach Swery just took a lot of heat at the beginning, went, 0 for 4. Nobody cared who he played. Didn't care that he played Liberty Center. It didn't matter. But nice job for him getting that ship righted and trucking on down the road.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Looking at the Green Meadows Conference here again. Tenor at Edgerton. We were all at this game. Tenor came away with a 38-0 win. And this game wasn't what all people probably thought it was. Tenor was actually only up 10-0 at halftime. Little slow start for Tenor. Looking at total offense, Tenor had 364 yards, 199 passing. Edgerton had 119 yards, 82 passing. Turnover battle, Tenor had 0. Edgerton had 2 with 1 interception and 1 fumble. Looking at some top players from Tenor, quarterback Dominic Graziani. Guys, check this stat line out. 18 of 24, 75%, 199 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 10 carries for 38 rushing yards. When's the last time a Tenor quarterback had that?
It's been a while.
I don't know. It's been a while.
Probably since Brevin.
Probably since Brevin. To be that efficient. Yep. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that here in a second. Other players from Tenor, running back Grady Gusweiler, 7 carries, 18 rushing yards with 1 rushing touchdown. He had 6 receptions for 73 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Linebacker Joey Geisinger had 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 interception on defense. Defensive back kicker Jacob Bishop, he had a heck of a game as well. He had that huge fumble return for a touchdown. Very athletic and impressive that he scored that in, as well as he had a good job at kicking the ball. Numerous touchbacks. It was touchback after touchback after touchback, as well as he nailed a field goal as well. So excellent job from Jacob, and he's really shined here in the last few weeks. And then from Edgerton, wide receiver Scotty Krantz had 4 receptions, 72 receiving yards. Linebacker Joel Walkup had 10 tackles, which led the team, and he had 1 sack as well. The point I wanted to go back to real quick was the Tenor Rams passing attack, and they just picked apart Edgerton, especially in the second half. They really found those routes, those little out routes, and they just worked the sideline up and down the field, and it was there. But that's the thing that we've talked about. If you can hit those nickel and dime throws, those nickel and dimes turn into 10, 15, 20 at times, and they're high completion percentage throws. And I felt like when Tenor really did that, they kind of got into a rhythm, and they just really marched the ball down in the second half. But none of that would have been possible without the excellent defense of Tenora. Back-to-back shutouts as well. I talked to Coach Eric Becker as well. Defensive coordinator Casey Houghton wasn't there last week due to a wedding, and they really wanted to go out there and get him a shutout because they got one against Paulding. And you know what? Those kids went out there, they played their hearts out, and they did a very nice job for the Rams.
Yeah, the even more impressive part about the 199 yards passing from Dominic Graziani is it was in the rain.
Yeah.
The fact that the Rams are able to rely on the passing game in crappy weather conditions is fantastic. Most of the time in high school football, when you get rain coming down like that, passing game's just off the table altogether. But the Rams seem like that's when they lean into it the most, which is pretty cool to see them do that.
Yep. Yeah, feeding off what AJ said, back-to-back weeks, Graziani in the rain. Like ever since that final drive against Ayersville where Dom drove the team down the field, he has elevated his game like not just another level, like maybe a level or 2 more. Just seems like that just shot his confidence so much higher. It's like AJ said, last week against Edgerton, he's just throwing the ball 10 yards here or there. Look at his numbers. It shows that the week before against Paulding, even in worst weather conditions, still was able to throw the ball pretty much whenever they wanted to. It's like the Rams still haven't switched from a running team to a passing team, even though it seems like it. It's just they're right now, due to injury, I think, more than anything, on the offensive line, you kind of switch to where you want to focus your attack on. Yep. And it can only benefit the Rams going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've noticed out of the Rams is, with Graziani is his mental approach. He's taking better throws. He's getting his reads a little better. And like you said, Keith, after that last drive against Ayersville, it seems like things have slowed down a little bit for him. Like he's not such a hurry anymore. He takes his time. He goes through his reads and his progressions. Maybe things have slowed down a little bit for him, but very happy that he's been taking care of the football the last few games. That's the big turnaround for Tenor. He's we're not turning the ball over, giving him a short field, and Dom's done a nice job there. But one thing that I want to talk about, Jacob Bishop has just been a beast for us this year with Tenor and kicking extra points and kicking people in the end zone and touchbacks and all that stuff. And then that fumble recovery. I mean,
that was exciting to watch.
I think Gusweiler was planning on jumping on it from what we saw. Like he was just going over and jump on the thing, and Jacob just beat him to it basically, and just picked it up and scooped it and ran him in there. And they bumped into somebody, I think, right at the end zone to get on in the end zone. But that was a good scoop and score for sure.
Yeah. Very rarely do you see somebody scoop it so cleanly like that, especially in the rain. He scooped that like it was nothing and just took off full stride and everything, never even slowed down, just scooped it up and kept on running. It's impressive.
And the thing with the Rams, we know they can run the ball. Tenor has been a run team since the beginning of time.
Yep.
But for them to go out here, really develop that passing game, especially in the elements of the bad weather and things like that, I just felt like Graziani was the most poised he's been all year. I feel like he felt comfortable. He went through his progressions. He scrambled when he had to a little bit, but he didn't that was his first instinct. My first read's not there. I'm going to take off and run.
Right.
He sat there. He went through his reads. He sat there comfortably in the pocket. The offensive line for the Rams did a pretty nice job as well. And I just really like the way he's developing here as of late too, because when you get to the postseason, you really got to be good on both running the ball and passing the ball on offense. And I feel like the Rams are coming into their own. So. Yeah. And then from Edgerton, I just want to give them a shout out. Coaching staff from Edgerton was great as well. Oh,
absolutely.
We stopped and we talked to Coach Flagel a little bit and Coach McClellan, and those guys were just amazing. So definitely doing good things over there. Obviously, they've struggled a little bit, but that program is in good hands with those guys over there. So I just wanted to shout that out
they're
as well.
ex-Bulldogs, and they're going to take care of that program.
They are.
I mean, Coach Flagel, like I said, it seems like he just graduated like 3 or 4 years ago, but it's been probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, I played against those guys too in high school, and they're good athletes. They understand the game, and they're going to take the Bulldogs. And sometimes we talk about those off years, but definitely in good hands.
Yeah. Hey, one other thing that. There was a play that Grady Gusweiler made that we all kind of got excited about in the game where he was running like it was 3rd down and 10 or something, where he was getting ready to go out of bounds and stretch the ball out.
Right.
And was able to get that first down. That was an awesome play and moved the chains for the Rams.
That's like the play you see like in the NFL.
Yeah.
He just dove and reached his body forward.
Yeah, the awareness to get the ball out there to the stick. That was awesome. So good job on that.
All right, just a couple games left here for the game recaps. Looking at Kenton at Van Wert. Van Wert won this one 41-18. Van Wert led at halftime 27-6. Total yards for Van Wert, they had 370 with 237 passing. Kenton had 299 with 270 passing. Looking at the turnover battle, Van Wert had 2 with 1 fumble and 1 interception. Kenton had 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions. Some top players from Van Wert: quarterback Brylan Parker, 6 of 12 for 50%, 77 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 11 carries for 47 rushing yards. Wide receiver Connor Campbell, 7 receptions, 109 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. A lot of one-handed catches this week, and he had another excellent catch as well for his touchdown. Wide receiver Reese Crew, 6 receptions, 103 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And defensive lineman Chance Young-Peter had 5 tackles, which led the team, and he had 3 sacks, so have yourself a day. What's your thoughts on the Kenton at Van Wert game?
For me, I'm just looking at it going, Brylan Parker didn't play quarterback the whole time, obviously. I mean, when you see that the Campbell kid had 109 yards receiving and Parker only had 77 passing yards. So I looked at the stats there, and a kid by the last name of Wise came in and actually threw the ball more than Parker did. So maybe the Van Wert's looking at something else.
Yeah, and Wise did a nice job coming in. He threw the ball 8 of 16, good for 50%, 128 passing yards. So didn't really do a bad job when he came in.
Right. Yeah, Van Wert was like one of those Jekyll and Hyde teams the first half of the season. You never knew what they were going to get. And here the last 3 weeks, they're starting to tune up for the playoffs.
All right, let's look at the last game here, and it's a Northern 8 conference game. Well, not conference game, but Northern 8 team, and that would be Chalker at Holgate. And Holgate won this one 58-32. We really didn't know what we were going to get out of this game because Chalker going in, they played some JV teams. They played, they played one varsity game. Yep. They played an 8-man game. So they kind of played all over. So we didn't know how they're going to match up to Holgate. And this game was tied 20-20 at halftime. Total yards, Holgate had 494 yards with 388 passing. Chalker had 235 yards with 221 rushing. Turnover battle, Holgate had 3 with 2 fumbles and 1 interception. Chalker had 2 with 1 interception, 1 fumble. Some top players from Holgate. Quarterback defensive back Xavier McCord was 18 of 37, 49%. He had 388 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns with 1 interception. 3 carries, 78 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns, totaling 7 touchdowns for the game. And on defense, he had 8 tackles, which led the defense, and 2 tackles for loss. Another key player here was wide receiver Isaac Mendoza, had 8 receptions, 189 receiving yards with 3 receiving touchdowns. And wide receiver Ricky Buckley had 3 receptions, 86 receiving yards for 2 receiving touchdowns. So thoughts on the Chalker at Holgate?
Whew. Xavier McCord coming out and doing Xavier McCord things again. Man, 388 yards passing with 7 touchdowns. That's pretty impressive as always for Xavier McCord kind of coming out there and doing his thing.
Yeah, good to see Holgate back in the win column after that tough loss to Toledo Christian. I don't know how many points they're averaging a game, but I'm just going to guess, just using my old school teacher Terry Pinner's math, probably about 55 points a game average.
I would say so.
You look at the stats, guys. Xavier McCord was responsible for 466 of the 494 yards.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And there's another example, Logan, we talked about last week, where Holgate lost a turnover battle but still won the game. So,
and guys, this game was actually, I think, on Saturday night, which I didn't know about it until like Saturday night when Holgate was posting stuff on Twitter. I was like, well, dang, just missed an opportunity to go watch him play.
That's true.
Wish I'd have known that.
Yeah, me too. I wish I would have.
I do believe, I think the weather was probably a little worse almost on Saturday than it was Friday. A little cooler, a little more rain. So, for them putting up 494 passing yards with even worse weather than Friday night, that's impressive in itself. So, all right. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. 3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign and promotional items to customers in Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. BSN Sports is your go-to business for purchasing uniforms, equipment, spiritwear, and anything else your athletic program needs, giving you more time to impact lives on the field. With over 1,200 sales professionals who live, work, and serve in your community, we are always just a short drive or phone call away. Be sure to give your local sales rep and Jim Garris a call for any of your athletic supply needs. We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and typically this is the Coach's Corner segment, but today we have something better, and we have the legend Michael Hearn in the house. So thanks for coming on the podcast, Michael.
Yeah, this is part of the show. If you're trying to learn anything about football, you might as well just go get a nice frosty beverage.
Yeah, so we're in for a real treat here. So basically, let's talk about yourself for a little bit, introduce you.
Let's not.
Hey, you're going to be joining us for a little bit of time here tonight. We got a good podcast on our hands. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement in athletics? And I know you're just a little bit south of us, but tell us a little bit about it.
Well, my name is Mike. I'm 41. I'm a Cancer. I was born in July, obviously. I told them before this that I hate talking about myself, contrary to what my dad used to tell people. I just realized the other day so I've been doing radio for 25 years now, and I don't like to use that because it just makes me feel old. But I got to start doing play-by-play at 25, did some semi-pro stuff, and I don't like to tell people about that because once you've seen a guy get tased on a football field, it's pretty much a wrap. I always joke the good news was he was from Akron. He didn't have to go back to Akron that night. Bad news was he spent the night in Ada.
Jeez.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? But a little bit of everything. I mean, my dad always told people when I was a kid, he's going to be like Chris Berman. Now, as I grew up, I started having issues with that because I understood how the world worked, and it was more gimmick, and I wanted to do more things. But I was not great at sports. I think I hit less than 100 my senior year and got struck out by Chad Billingsley, just as a local thing, right?
Yeah.
But we screwed him out of a no-hitter, so it's fine.
That's actually my cousin, too. So.
Well, he has one less no-hitter then because we can't do math at Spencerville. But I got to the point where Aaron Matthews, my mentor who passed away a couple years ago, was a brother to me. And I got to kind of branch out and with Z Sports Live and do some more kind of high school stuff, and I just loved it. And I didn't ever want to get a real job. I would be a terrible Walmart greeter. The joke is always like, "Hey, welcome to Walmart. Get your stuff, get out." They frown on that. You're not allowed to do that. So I realized that give me a microphone, I want to tell a story.
Sure.
I don't want to do anything else. So I started doing that, and then started doing football, started doing basketball, baseball. People sort of pushed me into doing volleyball and soccer. Now I do soccer because, volleyball is like bang, 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 right?
Yeah.
So like soccer is an hour and a half. Just tell a story. Because you don't have to talk about soccer the whole time. Nobody's there for that,
Sure,
right? Grandma doesn't want to hear about the intricacies of, the left-footed strike or whatever.
Yeah.
She just wants to know, did Betsy score?
That's right.
Right? Like other than
Accurate.
that. And with doing one team or covering a handful of kids in different sports, like you can tell more stories about them because you see them in everything, right?
Yep.
So you can talk about basketball or they're going to college or sometimes you go out the box and talk about Twitter or homecoming or whatever crazy thing that their parent tells you. You have to figure out what's good and what's bad. But I just kind of got that bug and kind of, I don't want to do anything else I always say, like, I want to live long enough to be able to call my daughter, who's 2, playing games. And then, you know what? I can do whatever. I can finally go work at Walmart. I'll be calm enough that I can finally tell people, I don't know where your stuff's at.
So, you do a lot of play-by-play, but you also run a podcast around the Hearn. You want to touch on that a little bit too?
2 of the 4 people at the table have been on this show. And also, it's had a lot of Keith Utendorf, which I hope doesn't deter people. The head basketball coach at Ottawa, if you don't know. No, I have a ball with that. And actually, I was just thinking about this on the way over because people in the area are probably like, that guy's voice sounds familiar. Well, it's probably because anytime you listen to him, they're like, who's that guy in all those commercials? Well, that's me. I have too much time on my hands. But, the podcast kind of came out of the same thing of everybody wants to do football. You want to do football on the radio. You want to do, in a lot of cases, boys basketball on the radio. There's not a lot of other sports.
Sure.
And it kind of came out of being around soccer kids, golf kids, tennis kids, cross country, the like. We have so many great athletes in the area that people aren't talking about unless they can figure out a way to make money off it themselves. Mm-hmm. And it bothered me. And I thought, well, what can I do here? And I did it, of course. I started this right before the pandemic. Which was the greatest idea and the worst idea because there's no sports. I didn't work for 6 months. Kind of sat around trying to figure out what to do. And I thought, okay, well, I did a lot better with doing podcasts every week and a half, whatever. You kind of get busy, you're doing things. And I haven't done it as much as I like, but it was about putting those kids in the spotlight and trying to get, I've been blessed to have a lot of great people on that show. And some not so great. Some of the interviews just, they don't always work.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just, you're not good, they're not good. You don't know how to interact with people. They don't get your humor, whatever.
Right.
But I really enjoy it because it's just kind of a chance to kind of long form tell stories you might not be able to otherwise.
Sure. And, I like that you mentioned, bringing some recognition to some of those kids that don't necessarily get as much. And I know we do some of the more popular sports, but that's the whole reason why NWO Sports was started.
We also like money.
Yeah, and that's something
it's a necessary evil.
Yeah, right. And that's like something too. We're not getting rich off this. We're here to promote these athletes, and
I know someone who is, but they don't want me to talk about it.
Sure. And
$12 million.
Yeah.
I said too, back in the day, if we had all this stuff, I think that we'd be eating up. Like when I was in high school, this is just awesome. All the recognition that all these other people are bringing to these athletes in Northwest Ohio. And I just think that's incredible. So, the last thing before I kind of open it up to these guys, but what kind of teams and areas do you typically cover for the listeners?
How much time do you have? Because somebody asked me this question the other day. I was actually talking to Jace Bowen.
Okay.
Trying to get him on because he's got an event coming up where he's teaching kids about hitting. And he's in the Pirates organization. He's pretty good. And he asked, where are you? Who do you cover or whatever? And I tried to say, well, I live in Findlay, but I can basically, it's a 3-hour circle around my house. and it's a little bit everywhere. Done some Toledo, a lot of the MAC, the WBL, the NWC, some NWCC. It's crazy because I never really know from day to day. Because I was on a different show the other day and they tried to pigeonhole me as the OG guy, which is partially true, but it's not, because I'm also the St. Mary's guy, and then I'm also the Spencerville guy with Nate. So honestly, if you got a little bit of money and about this much space and you'll give me a microphone, I'll probably show up. And it's not always a great amount of money either. So,
or a great amount of space.
Or that too. That's true. Yeah.
Or a space inside.
Yeah, we've had that problem ourselves.
That's part of a different podcast.
All right. Well, we'll open up to these guys. I know I got some other questions we can get to, but Keith probably knows you best out of all of us. So Keith, you got any questions for Michael?
I always say, like, I joke like off air with these guys here and like during the games. I was like, Michael's probably the second most familiar voice on our broadcast for 4 or 5 years, because everybody hears my voice, and then Michael here, he is the voice of our commercials. So there's Michael. But
that's who to blame.
Yeah, does a great job. Works for Peanuts. So I mean, anytime you can get something for Peanuts, you got to jump.
Work for less.
You got to jump in on that. But what's like the I guess it's probably going to hard to narrow down, Michael. But what's your favorite game that you've ever done? Like, you just sit back and you're like, when it's over, like, I can't believe that I just called this game.
It's like when people ask your favorite sport.
Right.
It changes all the time, right?
Yep.
Because, like, I remember we did when Kyle Arns, who ends up at Michigan State, when he was a senior, we were sitting in Columbus, and we were the second row back from where they sit you at the Shot Seed Center, and he had that dunk nearly from the corner on the free throw line from the elbow that ended up on Sports Center. Yep. And we're in that shot the whole time. And the hardest thing to do when you see these things are not say, holy, and then remember, like, I can get fined for this. I don't have $250,000 I'd like to give away. But I mean, it's so weird because, like, everybody will expect me to say, like, state championship games. And I got really lucky in 2020 when we had COVID and we had to move everything from, I remember the state played one of the games, a D2 game, I think, at Fortress Obetz in Columbus for football. And they had lost their minds because they were saying, we're going to play all 7 games down there. Well, for anybody who's not familiar with this place is one side where they run the cross-country championships. Yes. There's no spectator seating on one side. There's no benches. There's no anything. It's just a couple thousand seats on one side. Not a real big press box. Okay? How are you going to pull that off? Well, we'll set some tables up over there. You'll be fine. What about the rain? Is this a problem for anybody? Oh, no, it's fine. It's Wednesday. We'll figure that out. The games are Friday and Saturday. So they end up sending everybody to Massillon. So we get to go to this iconic stadium, right? We're sitting there, and we're so lucky because in a span of 3 hours, I get to call 2 games that end with a field goal, one at 26 yards, one at 25 yards. One is Van Wert, one is Coldwater, from nearly the exact same spot on the field. And 2 teams that I cover win a state championship. And to me, that's a cool moment. Yep. It's one that sticks out, but as far as games themselves, you would expect those kind of things. I mean, 100-yard kickoff returns, 100-yard pick sixes, game-winning shots, like all those things. But to me, the ones that always stick out are like the ones that there was a kid on the end of the bench who came in, got his first career points. Like you see all the stories on SportsCenter and stuff. But like the one that you got to make a moment because it shouldn't have or might not have happened. Yeah, it was a 50-point win, but like I will admit, like I probably shouldn't tell this story because whatever, but people who have listened and know me, I've probably cried more times on the air than I care to admit. Yeah. Because you're so invested in the kids, right? Right. And those are the ones, like I remember the OG girls. They go to state 4 times. They'd never been there before, never get past the regionals. And they just had bad luck every time, right? So the first time Katie Hempling was a freshman. And I remember like the end of that game, they lose to Versailles. They have a shot from half court, hit the rim, they lose by 3. Second year, something bad happens. 1 year, Katie, we thought, broke her thumb, and 2 other girls foul out. It's just like bad things. And I remember like trying to do the post game and having done all 30 of their games of like tearing up because it's so crazy that you're just like, I just want to see them pull this out, you know? And I always feel that way with local kids because I see them and everything. And I have this little like Northwest Ohio banner of, you're not really Northwest. We don't want you. You know, it's just for me, it's whatever the best story was at the time.
AJ, Tony?
Go ahead. Oh, I'm just honestly here to kind of listen to some of the input you've got today. I don't really have a whole lot of questions at this point, at least.
Yeah, that's generally how it goes. I talk so much, people are like, what was he talking about?
No, I
did that with Dick Quartercracks, by the way. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to Dick Quartercracks. I was at his retirement press conference, just as a quick aside, much quicker than what the story was. And he talked for 57 straight minutes. Whew. In his retirement cast, he was asked 3 questions.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. And Jim DeVoe from Lyman News asked him a question. He gets to the end, and I kid you not, he talked for 43 consecutive minutes. At the end of the question goes, I don't remember who asked that, but I hope the answer was in there somewhere. Thanks for coming. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I do have a question. You say you cover a lot of the MAC schools. So, you know, around here, we always look around. We've got Liberty Center now, building big program, Archbold building big program. But it seems like every time we play a MAC school, it's like every kid in the school is coming out on the field. You know, I remember going down to a couple of those games, and it's just like clowns getting out of a car. They just keep piling out. You know, you're like, they're still coming out. Is there do you know what causes that down there? I mean, it's just a different mentality or what?
I see you've jumped ahead on his questions because I know that was in the questions later on. No, it's crazy because people ask that all the time. They say, well, you know, they got to be doing something. Well, they're recruiting. I don't know if you've ever been to Maria Stein, but there's not a lot there in Osgood, North Star, Chickasaw, like all these little towns. John Dirkson's not just, you know, coming out of nowhere. I mean, there's no middle school or youth football, which I think is a thing that by the time these kids get to high school, all right, I got 4 years. I'm in it. And now I don't know that there's necessarily anything to that. They have amazing coaches down there. But I've always heard the story that a kid can go, you know, as hard as he can because he knows that 99% of those kids are only playing for 4 years. And this means more than this one, right?
Right.
It also helps that, you know, let's say a girl who's a 6'3" volleyball player from St. Henry, well, she gets married to a guy who was a star running back at Coldwater. Okay, well, where are they going to live? Well, they end up at Minster. Okay, well, now they're producing offspring, and it just kind of continues in a cycle of nobody's leaving for the most part, unless you get, you know, your Paige Jones at New Bremen and you get a D1 at Michigan. That ends up being okay. But it's just like, it's so crazy because even a bad year in the MAC, I mean, St. Henry could potentially make the playoffs at 1-9 or 2-8 this year. And it happened before. And then, you know, the year where they won 3 titles, they won 5, 6, and 7. It's not like there's I always hate this because it's not like there's one big answer. It's just sort of, I think it's a big part of not having a lot of distractions, and there's no boys soccer teams outside of New Knoxville. Well, New Knoxville doesn't have football.
Gotcha.
So all those kids are going somewhere, and this is football. This is what I do. You'll have a handful of kids playing basketball or baseball, but I really have always felt like their work ethic, I mean, there's not much else to do. You know, you're going to go farm at 5 o'clock in the morning, go lift, go to school, play football, go to sleep, get up, repeat. If you look at the MAC, I mean, they have more than 50 state championships just in football.
Right.
I'd say it's going all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It also helps that their coaches are great people. Like I've often said, I personally think Chip Otten at Coldwater is one of the best people that I've ever met. So I think it's kind of that thing of just kind of growing on the kids and making them go, I want to be that guy one day. You know, he was a D1 punter. Like, I don't know how many people know that. But he was a punter and was an all-MAC pick and a captain at BGSU. So he's still out there, even after I shouldn't say this, but even after he had his heart attack, his doctor said, maybe you take some time off. No, he's out there showing them how to kick.
Right.
It's those kind of guys. I mean, to me, it's leadership.
All right. I think just a couple more questions here, and then we'll move on to the next segment. But let's talk about, I know you cover St. Mary's a fair amount, and you broadcast.
Where my paycheck comes from.
That's right. You cover a lot of their football games. So tell us about them and their football season, especially after starting the season off 0-4. Now they have a 5-game winning streak going on. So just tell us a little bit about them.
Every single week from 2 weeks before the season started to now, I talk to Bo Fry a lot, and they go out and they play poorly in week 1. I mean, St. Henry, this is not a bash against St. Henry. You see where they're at. You know, they're a young team. They have a very young quarterback who made some mistakes in game 1. St. Mary's, I don't know. I mean, I saw, you talked to Drew Pasteur. I saw he had St. Mary's favored by, I think, 17 or more in that game. A lot of people were shocked. St. Mary's came out there, replaced 5 offensive linemen who were all league last year, all 5 of them. They're young up front. They have a quarterback who's coming back off a broken collarbone. It just didn't mesh right away. And it wasn't like they were getting destroyed in every one of those games. I mean, the Wapak game was 14, but they got stuffed on a 4th and 1 at the 5-yard line, and they got turned away at the goal line later on. There's your 14 points. Defense played exceptionally well. Salina game they were in until right before halftime, where something happened. I forget what it was. It was something crazy where they didn't get something. The official called the play wrong or something, and not to bag on officials, but Salina took advantage. You know, St. Mary's a young team, made a mistake, didn't get back into it, let it kind of fester. You know, coaches tell you that last play is gone now.
Yep.
What's the next one? Well, they didn't. Then they just kind of limped through the first 4 weeks of the season, and Bo Fry said, I'm telling you, you guys say what you want, but this is not a bad football team. We've made mistakes, and we got buried on those mistakes. And credit the other teams, and we took on the top half of the WBL through the first month of the season, or what is now the top half of the WBL. And a lot of people didn't realize how good Salina was going to be, which, again, he and 4 or 5 other coaches told me they would be, but they just got buried. I mean, here's one for you. They beat Elida 43-0 last week. The first 4 games of the year, they get outscored 90-38. 2 of those games, each one, week 2 and 3, each had 15 points. Week 3 wasn't a great week, so they go back to the drawing board. The last 5 weeks, they've outscored opponents 213-77.
Wow, crazy.
And if you put it in a box, here's the why they're doing it. Last 5 games, Dominic Osborne, 725 yards and 6 touchdowns. Last 4 games, Colton Mabry, because he missed a game in this spot. Osborne said, that's fine, ran for 200 yards. 611 yards and 10 touchdowns. They're both right on the precipice of being 1,000-yard rushers for the first time as a tandem since 2016. That team, I think, went to the regional semis, or the regional finals. I think that was the Trotwood year. They lost to Trotwood, who went on to play in the state finals. Belief. Yeah. He said, we're young, we make mistakes, they have some injuries, secondary, everybody's going to throw. Secondary couldn't cover anybody in the first half of the season. Now, they've forced more turnovers. They had 4 or 5 turnovers a couple weeks ago against a really good Van Wert team, who at the time hadn't turned over the ball.
Right.
Now, they almost sort of broke them. Yep. And you see kind of what has happened to Van Wert, but it just belief. They believe in the locker room, and I think it's a dangerous team going into this weekend against Bath, and then
I definitely do
potentially anywhere from, again, if you look at that layout on Fantastic 50, anywhere from 6 to like 11, which means either Mike Hearn is home in week 1 of the playoffs, which would be amazing, even though it's still an hour from my house, or I got to go to somewhere crazy like Millersburg again. That trip, not good. Or downtown Cleveland to see Glenville, or potentially going to or either hosting Van Wert. I like those odds a lot better. Or Caledonia. I don't even know where Caledonia's at.
I don't either.
You give me a map and I couldn't point it out.
Who went to Glenville last year?
Napoleon.
Napoleon, yeah.
And speaking of Napoleon, it's funny because there's so many similarities I see between St. Mary's and Napoleon. Napoleon was in a similar boat at the beginning of the year. People and Napoleon were not happy with the way things were going with the football program. They really turned things around, and I believe Napoleon's on a 5-game win streak too right now. So two similar programs and where they were at the beginning of the season. But now I don't know that you necessarily want to play them first round of the playoffs come playoff time. So, all right, last question. I'll just give you a little plug in. Where are all the locations people can hear you do play-by-play, or where can they access your podcast at?
How much time you got? Let's see. Right now, soccer is on either WZOQ Radio out of Ottawa or Z Sports Live. Football is on K94, which is WKKI in Salina. I'm also doing some stuff with the University of Findlay, thanks to Jason Geiser. And Ohio Northern football and basketball, thanks to a place called NK Telco in Knoxville. And I don't know, a bunch of other stuff. Around the Hearn is on iTunes. And how's that go? Wherever your podcast is found.
Yeah,
I had to change the host though, so I can never remember where it is. It's something with an A. It's on Audacity, something like that.
Okay,
something with an A. If you just literally search it, and then when you get to the Google search, when it says "Around the Horn," change the one that says "Did you mean around the Hearn?" And then
come right up.
Yeah, then it'll show right up.
All right. Well, we want to thank you again for coming on, Michael, and we're excited to have you on for the rest of the podcast. So we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Bat & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Tenora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on tenorarams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment. Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, and we are back, and we have a very special guest calling in today, and that would be Drew Pasture of Drew Pasture's Fantastic 50. So thanks for calling in, Drew.
Glad to be with y'all tonight.
All right. Well, we'll go into some things. First of all, for those of you who don't know, Drew runs the website fantastic50.net, which provides Ohio high school football rankings and predictions. It is absolutely phenomenal with predictions and how accurate they are. We absolutely love it here. And, we look at it a lot for Northwest Ohio football. So, Drew, we followed you for quite some time. And I even started following you back when I was in high school. And I think that was about, 8 to 10 years ago.
Just trying to make yourself feel younger.
Right. And why don't you just tell us, how did your Fantastic 50 website start?
Sure. Close to 25 years ago, I was a young high school teacher and coach down in my native North Carolina, and I got interested in the idea of an all classifications ranking in high school football, thinking about could some of the smaller schools that were elite compete with some of the bigger schools. We didn't see those kinds of games played as often in North Carolina as what there are in Ohio. And so I started playing around with computer ranking. This was the era of computer ranking starting to become significant in college football with the bowl championship series and this sort of thing. And through message boards and eventually my own website, started publishing all classifications rankings and then picks of games. And it led to predictions of playoff teams and seeds. And while North Carolina is not a huge high school football state, some newspapers and high school football websites noticed. And 15 years ago, I moved to Ohio when I started teaching at College of Worcester and brought the idea here. And the first season, I had 2 or 3 times as much traffic as I'd ever had in North Carolina, given this is a state that loves its high school football. And over the years, different things have gotten added on where a coach or a media member will say, hey, what about this? What about that? Things like trying to predict who might be a first-round playoff opponent or tracking long streaks of scoring 10 points or holding an opponent under 30 or regular season wins or this kind of stuff. Just a lot of things, one after another, slowly got added over time to where the website is what it looks like today.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And we talk about it all the time, that just how accurate it is. And, how much time do you put in on a weekly basis for it?
Well, it looks a lot different than it did 2 decades ago. I remember in the days before even having internet at home, of sitting with the Sunday newspaper that had all the scores in North Carolina in it and typing things into an Excel spreadsheet. Certainly it's not like that anymore. I mean, given that Joe Idle collects all the scores across the state, I can be asleep at 2 a.m. when the last scores come in, and the website will run itself.
That's nice.
So that's kind of nice today. I've got a background in scientific computing and modeling and simulation and this kind of thing, and I've learned just enough over the years to be able to set this stuff up to run itself. But there is a fair bit that goes in on the back end of updating code, dealing with headaches related to divisional classifications and out-of-state teams and forfeits and all that stuff. So it's still a few hours a week, but it's nothing like what it used to take to do this. Technological innovations have made it a whole lot easier.
Right. All right. Well, Drew, I'm going to open it up. These guys here will just ask a couple of questions, and we'll kind of jump into maybe some of the outlooks on some of the regions. So, guys, who wants to start with Drew?
I guess my first question is, Drew, how many hits a day or week do you average, especially this time of year?
Yeah, this time of year it becomes significant. I mean, I'm sure I'm doing a fraction of the kind of traffic Joe Idle is, but over the season it'll run into multiple millions.
Wow, crazy.
And this time of year it can be in the low six figures in a day sometimes.
Wow. And it pretty much.
I mean, again, Ohio's a state that loves its high school football, right?
Oh, they do.
Oh my word! You say that pretty much runs itself.
To a degree, that I can set something up and it'll go ping for Joe Idle for stores where I've got a place where he has data formatted for me, and if there's new scores to update, it'll do that. And then a lot of the playoff stuff comes out of running mini simulations, tens of thousands of the rest of the regular season, computing the Harbin points every time and seeing how things shake out. So again, even in the middle of the night, it can go pull down scores, run the simulations, calculate the numbers, build the web pages, and upload it. And as long as I don't lose my internet connection or anything, then that stuff will run itself, even if I'm out at a ball game or that kind of thing at the time. That's new in the last 2 or 3 years, and sure beats sitting up at 1 or 2 in the morning on a night when there's a lot happening. Yeah. You know, I'm not a college kid anymore that's up at all hours of the night. So.
AJ, Drew sounds like your mentor, man. I'm telling you.
I've gotten into a lot of like coding and website design and stuff like that here recently. Just tinkering, nothing crazy, but yeah, I enjoy the aspects of website design and the thought process that goes behind that kind of stuff.
Sure, I am certainly no designer on any of that stuff. I mean, I run a pretty utilitarian kind of format. I'm, people are coming to it for the information, not because it looks cool.
Right.
But I learn a little bit here and there from my college students, for sure. We've got a lot of computer science majors at Worcester, and so when I need to know how to do something, talk to one of them.
Well, so I was wondering, how much do the college kids get involved in it?
I had some a few years ago that started running some of the things of being able to build the web pages and that sort of thing at the time through Excel, but now it's all really done through scientific computing languages. And I know just enough to be dangerous. I think I had one computer programming course in college and 2 stat courses, one of which I barely passed. But, if you deal with this stuff long enough, you pick up a little bit here and there. And so I know enough to be able to get by.
Michael, you got a question for Drew at all?
I was just wondering, how does the dynamic with you and Joe Idle work? I mean, did you guys kind of collaborate together, or was it, hey, we're sort of in the same lane, maybe we can help one another?
Yeah, Joe has been around a bit longer than I have. His stuff goes back to the late 90s, if I recall. And so that was already around, and he's been my source of scores from day one when I came up here. But Joe and Bruce Monin, who does similar kinds of stuff in a podcast on certain regions, and I are in pretty routine contact with each other during the season. And Joe's got good connections with the OHSAA to find information about forfeits or teams that may be moved up or down a class or this kind of thing, or is this game going to count as an official game? And so that information flows. Occasionally I hear something that I can help out in return, but mostly, Joe is like everybody thinks he is, the person that's really in the know on all this stuff. And so anybody else that's, yeah, that's right. Anybody else that's in this lane is relying on him for content. If he quit doing this tomorrow, then I'd be out of business.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. We've asked you quite a few questions right now, but let's go ahead. We're going to break down just the region just a little bit because we're going to do this later in the podcast, but maybe just get a quick thought or two on a couple of the regions. So I'll kind of roll us through and see what you have to say. All right. Looking at Division 3, Region 10, and looking at this region, Defiance is the only team out of this area that we cover, and it looks like they've already clinched a playoff spot, but it looks like there's a small chance currently at 17% of Defiance hosting a home game. So what are your thoughts on Defiance in this region?
Yes, if Defiance beats OttawaGranger, which seems pretty likely, then they've still got an outside shot at getting a home game. More realistically, they might be seated somewhere around number 9 or 10 in there, which means they're likely to get a good competitive home game. If I had to guess, I would think they get the 9 seed, and maybe they might be facing Bay.
Okay,
that seems like the most likely, perhaps Buckeye. And I'd figure in a first round game between those two, they'd probably be favored even on the road against Buckeye, and against Bay. On the other hand, they'd be a little bit less of a favorite, but either way, I think they're probably a slight favorite on the road in the first round if they end up with a road game.
All right. We'll keep things rolling here. Let's look at Division 4, Region 14. Out of the areas that we cover, we're looking at Van Wert, Napoleon, Wason, and Bryan are the teams out of this region we cover. It looks like all 4 are projected to make the playoffs at this time. Looking at Wason, they have a high chance of playing a rematch against Bellevue, who they played earlier in the season, and with they have a high chance at that at 30% playing them, Van Wert at a 28%, and Napoleon at a 20%, all with a loss to Liberty Center this week. So we always talk about beating a team twice in a season is hard. Do you have any thoughts of playing a team twice in a season, and do you have any statistical data of playing a team twice in one season? I wasn't sure, what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I don't have any data on that specifically. The one thing that I do track is where teams play each other both weeks 10 and 11. Every year we get some first-round rematches from the last week of the regular season, which is a particularly unusual dynamic, a little different than a rematch from earlier in the season. Usually the better team is going to win, especially in late October and November. But I have never looked at that to see what the odds are and the historical data says on those playoff rematches. That would be interesting to look at.
Yeah, that's something, we've kind of kept an eye on because, there's always that saying, beating a team is tough in one season. And it seems like more times than not, maybe a team that won earlier in the regular season, they end up losing it, even though they are the better team come playoff time. So I don't know what it is, but it was just kind of something that I was curious and thought we'd take a look at. So, but as far as this Division 4, Region 14, who's your favorite out of those 4 teams to make it the furthest in the region?
Yeah, I think Van Wert is considerably stronger than the others, and they've got a realistic chance of making it to the neutral site games. Ultimately, this region, it looks like Perkins and Glenville are the 2 powerhouses, and I expect to see the regional final come down to those 2. But I could see Van Wert making it to the 3rd round.
All right, let's move on to the next. Oh, Michael, you have something?
I am just fascinated by this. I read a lot about St. Mary's. You have them 58% that if they win this weekend, they get a home game. The rankings kind of right now have them with Joe has them around 11. How do you see that team? I mean, they could play. You have them with Caledonia, with River Valley as an 8-9 matchup. I mean, how is it that you've seen St. Mary's kind of grow throughout the course of the season with numbers?
Sure, they early in the season, it's kind of interesting. They were ranked fairly high preseason, and that's based on 3 quarters on last year and 1 quarter the year before. But of course, they had a rough start to the season after losing to St. Henry as a 4-touchdown favorite the first week. Then Salina, and then Defiance and Wapakoneta. They're 0-4. And then with really the win at Van Wert, I think was perhaps the turning point in the season. Now they look a whole lot better in the second half. Admittedly, other than Van Wert, the schedule's not been as strong, but they look like a team that is peaking at the right time, at least. I think they're still likely to be an underdog against whoever they play in the first round, in particular against, actually, you know what? If they, in the first round, if they were to face River Valley, which looks quite possible, they'd be a couple touchdown favorite.
I'm sure there's a lot of people at Grand Lake Healthfield that'll be thrilled to hear that.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here. We just have a couple other divisions here, but yeah, appreciate your input, Drew. It's amazing to hear what your thoughts are, and the whole system that you've created. So let's move on to the next one. We're looking at Division 5, Region 18, and out of this region, we cover Liberty Center, Archbold, Ottawa-Glandorf, Delta, and Swanton. And we've covered Liberty Center closely all year, along with the other teams. But I think, personally, Liberty Center seems to be the clear favorite in this region. But for you, who is your favorite to take the region, and what team do you think could surprise some teams out of this region?
Yeah, Liberty Center, wow, they are quite the powerhouse. That defense is impressive, and they have put up a lot of points on some good teams. I mean, the 42-14 win over Archbold on the road in Week 4 is a really impressive win. Right now, I've got them number 1 in the state in D5, and in a fairly open division, they are the highest chance to win the state. I think Perry's in there, Valley View's in there, and there's a second tier of Harvest Prep, Ironton, Coldwater, South Range that are right there. Archbold's not out of the question either to go to state, but Liberty Center would be the favorite to win this region. I think we could end up with, if I look at where the seeds are likely to play out, Archbold has the chance of getting the final there. It looks like Coldwater and Liberty Center could end up on the same side of the bracket, and it's hard to pick against a MAC team in the playoff, particularly one that's run up a 9-0 record. Coldwater Marion local game ought to be interesting this week, but they're very possibly going to end up on the same side of the bracket, so that could make for an early round game there. But both of those teams, Liberty Center and Archbold, ought to have really high hopes for the playoffs.
All right, that's awesome to hear. Just a couple other divisions here. Looking at Division 6, Region 22, some of the teams that we cover: Columbus Grove, Tenora, Wayne Trace, Evergreen, Paulding, Fairview, Hicksville, are all teams that we cover in this region. And we have a huge game this week out of Paulding and Wayne Trace, who are also county rivals. The way it looks is whoever wins this game they walk away with a playoff berth, and whoever loses, they go home. So can you touch on this matchup, and which team do you think wins according to your website?
I have Paulding as a almost 3-touchdown favorite. Indeed, this is a game where it looks like it's pretty clear the winner's in and the loser's out. They don't get much more fun than that in Week 10, short of undefeated against undefeated. So play-in kind of game, and that should be a lot of fun. And then as you look at the top of the region, Columbus Grove is one of the strongest teams in the region. Even if they were to lose to Bluffton this week, they're still going to get a first-round home game, even at 7-3. And this is not a region where there's one dominant team. Bluffton and Columbus Grove, I think we could see again 4 weeks from now in the regional final potentially, though Carey probably will have something to say about that as well. But should be an interesting one to see how this works out, because it could be a preview of things to come.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to see a matchup with some of these teams, but definitely an intriguing region for sure. And then let's look at the last Division 7, Region 26. We covered teams Patrick Henry, Antwerp, Ayersville, North Central, Eden, Edgerton, Montpelier, Hilltop from this region. And one team that has had a great season and one of the better seasons that they've had in a long time is Montpelier. Right now, they are on the outside looking in for the playoffs with a 27% chance. You have some teams listed on the website that kind of need to have some wins. Now, do they need all of those teams to win in order to have a shot, do you believe, at the playoffs? Or what are your kind of thoughts on that?
No, not necessarily. What this is going to come down to in at the bottom end of Region 26 is there's 3 teams fighting for one playoff berth. Montpelier, Gibsonburg, and Hardin Northern are fighting for that last playoff spot. And Hardin Northern has a toss-up kind of game with Elgin. If they lose that, they're out, and it's going to be one of the other two that's in. If they win that, then it's going to be really tough for Montpelier or Gibsonburg to get in.
And something, too, we looked at this, and I believe personally, after looking at all the teams and who's all involved in this, I believe Region 26 is probably one of the toughest in the state. What are your thoughts? Who do you think comes away with the winner in this region?
Yeah, without question, this is one of the deepest regions in the state. In the revised playoff format, it's really unusual that a team with a winning record gets left out. There will be just a handful of 6 and 4 teams, and Montpelier potentially being 7 and 3 and being left out. That's really rare. So it is a very deep region when you look at the records there. Ultimately, I think that this region, at the end of it, Macomb, Pandora Gilboa, Lima Central Catholic, maybe Hopewell Loudon or Patrick Henry. It looks like one of the more open regions where there's not one team that's an overwhelming sort of favorite.
Very well said. Well, Drew, we just want to thank you for taking time to call in and talk some football with us. So keep up the good work as you continue to produce great Ohio football content on your website. So we just want to thank you again, and take care, Drew.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate your time, and enjoy talking with y'all.
Yes, thank you, Drew.
Thank you, Drew.
Thanks for making my life easier.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Not a problem. Bye-bye.
We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio, give her a call today at 419-799-1243. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we're looking at Player of the Week from Week 9. So we'll go ahead and we'll review some players. I'll give a list of the nominees, and then these guys here will kind of talk with some players who caught their eye that could possibly be potential Player of the Week. So we'll kick it off. We're looking at Wason quarterback Trey Parsons, Wason wide receiver, defensive back, kicker Tyson Rodriguez, Archbold running back and kick returner Jack Hurst, Patrick Henry wide receiver Thomas Smith, Ayersville running back Torrington Neven, Fairview quarterback William Zedike, Ayersville running back Abe Delano, Antwerp quarterback Carson Altimus, Napoleon quarterback Owen Espinoza, Holgate quarterback defensive back Xavier McCord, Columbus Grove running back Trent Barraza, and Mike, who are some of you guys, some players you're looking at?
Well, Trent Barraza, because he had 8 rushes, 187 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, and I don't believe he played in the second half. But for me, I'm a little biased because I cover St. Mary's, but there are very few times in life as an announcer that you get to call a big guy touchdown.
Okay.
And Tanner Mealy, the right tackle for St. Mary's, did it last week where he picked up a fumble, ran 21 yards into the end zone. And I laugh now when I see the pictures because his brother, TJ, played running back at St. Mary's.
Okay.
And the first thing I noticed is in the picture how he's holding the ball kind of, point to point. And I just keep thinking his brother walking up to him and just telling him how he needs to hold the ball. But there's quite literally nothing like seeing an offensive lineman score a touchdown because when they get to the end zone, what do I do?
Right.
And he throws his hands up and celebrates, and all his teammates come and run in there, and he just
pulls the whole Ricky Bobby.
Yeah,
Goes
right.
his hands.
right.
Ricky
I don't know what to do with my hands. But for me, we actually on my broadcast we gave him player of the game that night.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because you're never going to see that again, more than likely.
Awesome.
But it just running back, jumped over a pile, had the ball knocked out from behind. He scooped, took off, and you can see in the pictures his eyes get really big as if they shot him from the end zone. He got to go into the student section, his own student section, and celebrate with them. And to me, that made me biased, but he was my player maybe of the whole year just because. How many games have you done?
None.
Big guy touchdown,
ever.
right?
Yeah, that's an offensive lineman's dream to score the ball, and especially for him to celebrate, and that's pretty awesome.
I could hear his mom yelling, "He better be the player of the game!" all the way from the parking lot in the post game show.
That's funny.
Who are some players you were looking at?
For me, I like the tandem actually for Ayersville, Torrin Knieven and Abe Delano, both rushing for 155 yards. But I know Torrin, I think as Keith mentioned earlier, maybe he only played basically the first half. Didn't get to play in the second half. So pretty impressive, and just an unfortunate injury there for him to cut that night short.
Go ahead, Keith.
Mr. Everything, Tyson Rodriguez. Pretty much does everything offensively, defensively, special teams for Wason.
I'm right there with Wasion. I'm looking at Trey Parsons is a favorite for me with 213 passing yards. He's responsible for three touchdowns, which is fantastic. And coming out with a win against Bryan, after we had talked about Wayne Trace having, not Wayne Trace, but Wasion having a tough time with those big games and coming away with that win. And Trey Parsons is able to help lead the charge on getting that win.
All right, and after some conversation, there's a lot of kids that were worthy of it, but the one that we were kind of looking at, he really contributed in multiple aspects of the game, running back, kick returner, and he's done this all year long, and that would be Archbold's running back, kick returner, Jack Hurst, finished with 5 carries, 127 rushing yards, good for 25.4 yards a carry. He had 1 rushing touchdown, 2 receptions for 49 receiving yards with a receiving touchdown, and he had a kick return for 75 yards and a touchdown as well. And I don't know, Keith said, like he said earlier, I'd be curious to see how many special teams touchdowns that Archbold has this season because they have some of the most explosive players on their team, and to do this against a quality opponent like Patrick Henry, Jack Hurst is very deserving of Player of the Week, and Player of the Week will end up receiving a shirt or some NWO sports gear courtesy of BSN Sports. So again, we thank BSN for sponsoring us and helping to provide some gear for all these kids in Northwest Ohio. So give a special shout out to them.
Does he have to turn the sliders back up this week? He's playing on rookie mode. I mean, that's how I play.
That's true, too. I don't know.
When they bring back NCAA at some point, I'll probably play it that way, too. But that's just a heck of a night.
Yeah, it is. I mean, to go out there, 25, I don't even know how many times you've seen actually 25.4 yards a carry on 5 carries. So pretty impressive from him. All right, let's move on to the next segment. Looking at power rankings for week 10. So we'll go ahead and I'll break these down, and these guys will usually kind of roast me like usual. So
we're not the only ones that hear.
We'll see. And Michael will kind of insert some of his team from his areas to see, maybe where they match up in Northwest Ohio. So we're looking at number 25, Swanton, 24, Hilltop, 23, Hicksville, 22, Edgerton, 21, Fairview, and 20, Evergreen. Thoughts on this group here?
Pretty accurately ranked, like we said over and over again. Fairview this year compared to Fairview next year is going to be night and day.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next ranking. 19, Delta, 18, Paulding, 17, Montpelier, 16, Ottawa-Glandorf, 15, Eden. Thoughts on this group here?
For me, I just Montpelier is the team that I think should be ranked up higher. I know they're 17, and I know their schedule's not the greatest, but they're 7-2 though.
And I even think looking at this group here, Ottawa-Glandorf, I know they're 1-8. But man, the Western Buckeye League is a tough league to play in, and they've been close neck and neck in multiple games as well. So I think that 1-8 record really does them a disjustice because they're a lot better ball club than what that record displays.
Which is like the hardest thing to quantify.
It is.
Because I feel so bad for Ken Schreiner because he's had so much success. I mean, 25 years, they went to playoffs 17 times.
Right.
They've gone to the regional finals recently. And I had somebody bring that up. He's been to the state Final Four. They've been to all these places. But, it's the old sometimes you eat the dog, sometimes it eats you. And they just, like you said, they've had games that they've been in. They've just not been able to finish, or they didn't have a way to finish it. One night they lost because of a 2-point conversion, which a lot of people in Ottawa and Glandorf are still not happy about. But that's, a whole thing. They've been in other games, and I even talking to Ken, he just said, we've just had some bad luck, and we played very good teams. WBL has been really good this year,
Right.
but just not able to put it all together and have it stay that way for an entire 4 quarters.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's look at the next group here. Number 14, Wayne Trace. Number 13, North Central. Number 12, Patrick Henry. Number 11, Brian, and we'll save the top 10. Thoughts on this group here?
I would kind of like to see like a Montpelier versus Wayne Trace matchup to see how they match. I think it could be a potentially good game for them. See, if Wayne Trace is sitting at 14, Montpelier's at 17. See if they would maybe flip flop, something like that.
Yeah, for me, Ayersville is one of those teams that you really don't know moving forward what you're going to get for them. It's unfortunate, but right now they're kind of in that unknown territory, kind of like PH was a couple weeks ago with Nashmeyer being out.
And that would be my big takeaway from that would be, the way PH started and what
Right.
everybody
Yep.
was talking about, and all the people from Hamler and, as my buddy calls it, Suburban Dashler. Shout out to Jason Geyser. But it just kind of an unfortunate thing where you're rolling, and then all of a sudden you lose the kid. And I get to see him in baseball a lot, Nash Meyer. Terrific kid, great leader. To just have that loss of, okay, look around the room. What are we going to do now? Who's the next guy?
Yep. All right, let's break down the top 10 here. Coming in at number 10, Ayersville, 9, Tenora, 8, Wason, 7, Napoleon, 6, Van Wert, and we'll save the top 5. Thoughts on this group here?
That's going to kind of work itself out a little bit, I think. Napoleon's got a big game this week. Wason's got another big game. So we're just going to see what happens.
To me, Van Wert, again, obviously biased covering WBL, but I've seen them in person. They're down 14-0 to St. Mary's. They end up losing 21-19 because they can't convert on a 2-point conversion that they're kind of forced to go to because of the situation. They score with less than 3 minutes to go in the game. St. Mary's recovers the onside kick and sort of has to get a first down to wear it out. But Van Wert 6-3 right now, I think is surprising to a lot of people who don't see them because of what Van Wert has been. But you've got Brylan Parker, who I absolutely love, but he's a running back playing quarterback.
Yeah, we've discussed that
as
too.
you've gotten away with it, you also have things where he threw 5 interceptions in 2 games with St. Mary's and the Wapak game the game before. And teams kind of exploited that. They can't stop the run. They're giving up almost 6 yards per carry. And that was a problem. St. Mary's just obliterated them on it. And I kind of wonder if maybe that blueprint's out there that a lot of teams are, hey, if we just start running the ball, if we run some dives and some traps, maybe we can get some things. And you guys have talked about it, like any good offense. If they're not on the field, they can't score points.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at the top 5 here. Looking at number 5, Antwerp. Number 4, Defiance. Number 3, Columbus Grove. Number 2, Archbold. And number 1, Liberty Center. So, guys, thoughts on the top 5 here?
Obviously, Liberty Center is going to stay there. I don't see Wason doing any damage to them this weekend. But, yeah, maybe Defiance deserve to be in the top 5, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they've had a rough month, really. They've won.
Well, losing Broden Castillo in the St. Mary's game didn't help.
Yep.
Because that put so much extra pressure on Brett Zipfold that it was, okay, he can make plays now, but now he's forced to make plays.
Yep, right.
And, he was out for a while. The defense kind of struggled to acclimate. Kind of the same thing with Van Wert of that offense has been so good. And Travis Cooper told me last year, he said, we're going to take our lumps, but I believe in the future we're going to be good because all these kids are maturing together as players. And it showed out. They go to St. Mary's. They beat St. Mary's for the first time in almost a decade, and they look good doing it. And just kind of the same thing we talked about. Where are teams? Wayne Trace, injuries. Patrick Henry, injuries. Van Wert, you're kind of the same boat, but it's still a good football team. And, they've got I don't want to say a trap game with OG this weekend, but if they're not paying attention, OG's got a little bit of momentum right now, and having Peyton Kuhlman playing well, you look up at the wrong end of that score, and you're worried about having to go to Cleveland next week.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you're worried about going anywhere.
And we discussed that with Defiance too. I believe they're playing for Coach Ken Schreiner's 200th win too. I think is what someone brought up.
Right at that mark. Yeah.
So there's a lot of momentum there for OG, and it possibly could be, but hopefully.
And OG's not out of the playoff race if you look at the numbers.
We talked about that last week. Actually,
that's crazy. That's insane, and that's crazy. But for me, kind of again, a little further south than Liberty Center and Archbold with Grove. I love their head coach. I talk to him quite frequently. And you go back, you look, they're 1-2 in the first month of the season. They lose the rivalry. Okay, all right. PG 6-3 right now. They're, I think, better than that record too. Beat Liberty Benton. LB's only lost a year. But then they come to Patrick Henry when they have Nashmeyer, lose by 12, kind of late scores in that game. It doesn't really tell you, but I mean, look what they've done to the NWC since that point. And a lot of people didn't think, this is so weird to say, in the last go-round of the NWC between Grove and Lipsick, that, they beat them pretty soundly. I don't think 28-14 is indicative of what happened. You've got a terrific core with Barraza. I mean, last year was kind of an odd game, but between Barraza, the offense, I think that's a team that could surprise some people.
Oh, I agree too. And I'm really excited. I know we'll talk about the predictions later, but for that Bluffton and Columbus Grove game this week, it's going to be a huge game. And that's going to be probably one of the best games in the area. We talk about Paulding, Wayne Trace as well as most competitive games, but definitely be a good one this week. All right. Let's go ahead. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Drop Zone Pizzeria is the #1 voted pizza restaurant in the region. Check them out for pizza, wings, subs, and more. Located in Ayersville and Stryker, or ask them about their traveling food trailer. Optimal Performance Fitness is your go-to gym in Northwest Ohio, providing group fitness classes, personal training, and sports performance sessions for area athletes. Located in Napoleon, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-438-7265. Welcome back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we're on to our playoff talk and prediction segment. So we'll go ahead, we'll break down those regions and those different divisions. Drew Pastor gave a little bit of an insight, but we're going to break things down a little bit more. So let's go ahead, let's look at Division 3, Region 10. And out of this region, the only team that we're looking at here in the area we cover is Defiance. And at this point, they've clinched a playoff spot. They currently have a 16% chance for a home game. And again, a lot of these stats are coming from Drew Pasture's Fantastic 50 website. With a win against Ottawa-Glandorf this week, they're the favorites, and they have a 64% chance to play Bay, 7-2, which means Defiance would travel 2 hours to the Cleveland area, so a long road trip possibly in the near future for Defiance. But guys, we'll look at the region real quick before you guys give your input. Currently, right now, top 16 teams make it, but at number 1, you have Toledo Central Catholic. Number 2, you have Norton. Number 3, you have Tiffin Columbia. Number 4, you have Rocky River. 5, Mansfield Senior. 6, Ontario. 7, Buckeye. 8, Bay. 9, Defiance. 10, Sandusky. 11, Lutheran West. 12, Ashland. 13, Clyde. 14, Padua Franciscan. 15, there's a tie currently between Bowling Green and Maumee. And kind of play out from there. So, guys, what are your thoughts on this region?
I think last year Defiance had to travel about 2.5 hours in the opening round too. So hopefully they can secure a little closer contest. But for us looking at Defiance, like we kind of talked off camera a little bit, they're kind of winning ugly really here the last 2 or 3 times. So
yeah, they need to clean some things up and settle back in. They had a great start to the season. And they need to settle back into that and get business taken care of right away and maintain it throughout the game. I know they've been struggling kind of in the second half, which has been causing them to have some of those closer games than what they really should. But they've got the playoff spot clinched, so get prepared for this week. Don't sleep on it, but then come out next week and perform to the way we know you can perform.
Guys, you realize we're a year removed from when I joked around last year about Defiance hosting a playoff game, and the only way that was going to be if it was a D7 team playing there. And here we are talking about Defiance hosting a playoff game, with a win probably. So it'll be exciting to see if Defiance. I mean, got a game against OG should be an easy win for them, but who knows?
Well, they went to Bay in 2020, came back with a 27-10 win. Home of George Steinbrenner, by the way, because I'm all about random things. But it's not a program or a school that's new to them. They played them in the regionals in baseball in Bowling Green this year, too. It's not a bad trip. It's just there's not really a good way to get there. That's why people don't want to live in Bay Village.
Where is Bay?
Just west of Cleveland by 20 or so minutes.
I think it's like right on the lake, isn't it? Or pretty close.
It's not I don't think it's that far north, but it's pretty close to where you can almost hit it from there. It's a beautiful town, by the way. You do actually want to live there, but it costs a lot. But yeah, you don't want to make that trip if you don't have to. You don't want to go all the way to Cleveland through the middle of the night. 2 hours in a car, a lot more by bus.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It is fascinating. I mean, you just kind of look at Defiance, what they've done. The last 3 weeks, they've lost 2 out of 3, okay, but the Elida one was by a point. Something that happened late on the road. Beat up the bottom half of the league, lost to Van Wert by a point. So really, their last month and a half, they're not playing well. But like you guys said, just got to clean some things up.
Yeah, and I think Defiance, this is probably one of the better ball clubs we've seen out of Defiance in years.
Oh.
We know last year they had some success, but they just come back and they're reloaded this year. So I think they could possibly make some noise. The only thing, you look at this region, it's a tough region. You've got Toledo Central Catholic, which has got to be the favorite for the region, I would assume. And I believe they won the national, or not national title, the state championship last year as well. So
I think Pasteur has about like 90% to win the region and somewhere around like 60% to win state. So
yeah, I know
obviously people think pretty well of that.
Yeah, they do. So that's going to be a tough region to get out of. But I think Defiance, they make some noise. Let's look at the next one. We're looking at Division 4, Region 14. And there are 4 teams from Northwest Ohio we cover that have clinched playoff spots, and we're looking at Van Wert, Wason, Napoleon, Bryan, and actually Michael's St. Mary's team is also in there, so they have seemed to clinch as well. And Michael, your St. Mary's has been one of the hottest teams around, and we've discussed a little bit before on them. They're on a 5-game win streak and have a couple nice wins over Van Wert and Elida. How do you feel their win streak and current play help them come playoff time?
Well, they're a team that is extremely hard to game plan for because you look, and I can't tell you that I know a ton about every team in this region, but I know they've seen Shelby in the past. We lost to West Holmes last year with a loaded team that their quarterback graduated and their running back he was going to Penn State at one point. I think he's going to Ohio State now. Went back to Columbus. He and his brother, who's a defensive standout, to live with their mom after they were living with one of the coaches up there. Glenville is Glenville. I mean, it's pretty much the fact that they're 6-2 and sitting in the 4 spot. Obviously, Van Wert knows a lot about them. They are maybe the one outlier. You've got Bath down at the bottom. We're not going to see them. But a lot of teams that run spreads. And I've had coaches tell me, particularly the WBL schools this year, I said, how do you game plan for a team like this? Do you throw your entire scheme out the window and just come up with something for a week? Or do you kind of just go with what you know? And a lot of them will say, we'll more do us because I don't want to change up our whole scheme and then have to put it back a week later with another spread team like, say, Van Wert or a multiple offense team like Salina. And I think that's what makes them dangerous in this playoff setting is the last handful of years, they've gone 2-3 rounds because they get teams who don't see anything like what St. Mary's runs. And if they continue to run it, offensive line has really played well the last month and a half. They have 3 running backs who are capable of having 1,000-yard seasons. 2 of them are about to do it for the first time since 16. They don't have to load up and throw the ball, and that's the key. If you can jump on St. Mary's and force them to throw the ball, they're not going to be able to use counters, traps, dives, sweeps. But you have to figure out, we don't see a guy come from over here and then come in on a counter. What do we do for that? So for me, if they beat Bath this weekend, which I'd like to believe they will, it's fascinating to think about what they could potentially do in this region.
Yeah. Like for local people, I guess it's similar to watching Liberty Center play. Liberty Center probably throws the ball 8 times a game, 8, 10, 12, maybe at the most.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
And just looking at this region real quick, running through current standings, Sandusky Perkins is at 1, Shelby at 2, West Holmes at 3, Glenville at 4. That's just don't even play.
I'm just trying to avoid Cleveland and Amish country.
Yeah. No kidding. But don't even play into Glenville being at 4. That's just, you do not want to play them early in the playoffs because you look at some of the teams
maybe
that they
in
play.
the afternoon in Cleveland. A different field because Glenville doesn't have their own field.
Yeah, that's true too. Which I could never understand that. So because they play at community stadiums, right? Or they kind of share some of there.
True, they can borrow.
Really? Okay.
I'm trying to think. They were going to they would have to, because they play a lot of their games in the City League up there in the afternoons. And that's what, if you look into the Euclid situation that's been going on up there with Solon and Euclid, there's a lot of things, and I don't really want to have to be in downtown Cleveland at 3 o'clock in the afternoon trying to play a game at Collinwood.
Right.
So I'm just hoping to avoid Glenville altogether.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, also because they're pretty good at football.
That too, yeah. And they have Ted Ginn Sr. still coaching for him, and he just does a phenomenal job there.
Didn't Van Wert give him? Was it Van Wert that gave him a pretty good?
Yeah, it was
last season.
It was at Tiffin last year.
I think. A couple years ago too.
Was it?
Yeah, well, because when we were at the Finley game, we were at Donnell Stadium watching LCC and Antwerp play.
Yeah.
Actually, our coach, I think Finley's coaches went to go watch Aiden Pratt from Van Wert play, and that was just down the road at Tiffin. So they gave him a run for their money.
Van Wert was winning that game. If
They
I
were,
remember
I
right.
believe
They were winning
so.
that game, and then they came back to beat them. But you look at Glenville's schedule; they don't play anybody in D4.
No, they don't.
They're all D1s, D2 schools. They don't play anybody in D4.
And you talk about, I know Glenville's not in our coverage area, but they play IMG Academy, which everyone knows that's a powerhouse in football. Right. They literally play teams in Virginia, all over the country. So
Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah.
That game was 44-32, by the way, and Glenville ended up winning state. So
yeah. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But other teams in this region, 5 Galleon, 6 Van Wert, 7 Wason, 8 Bellevue, 9 River Valley. Again, these are current standings for this week. Napoleon at 10, 11 St. Mary's, 12 Firelands, 13 Bryan, 14 Cleveland Central Catholic, 15 Bath, 16 Elyria Catholic. But the thing I think is interesting, you look, and actually some of these teams look like they could match up against each other. And one of the teams or matchups we could see, Van Wert in the first round, if they win this next game, 32% chance and is the most likely to play Wasion first round.
Yep.
So I believe they played as well just a couple of years ago too. So we could see a lot of these local teams actually beat up on each other come playoff time.
Just look at. Am I seeing that right? They're saying that Clear Fork at 1-8 has an outside chance of getting in. Am I seeing that right? I'm looking at Region 14 playoff probabilities, and they're saying Clear Fork has an outside chance of getting in. I'm like, how can? I guess it's probably a 99% chance of not getting in, but
Yeah, Joe Idle says with a win, they could be a 16. Well, that depends on Elyria Catholic losing and being 3-7. That again is why I say maybe you can go into the transfer portal and request to move to a different region for a year.
Yeah, there you go. Something.
Like the OHSA doesn't have enough to do.
oh my god,
You want to do what? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible how things actually work out, especially with the expanded playoffs. It's just unbelievable. Let's move on to the next region. We're looking at Division 5, Region 18. And in this region, we're looking at Liberty Center, Archbold, Delta, Ottawa-Glandorf, and Swanton. At this point in time, Liberty Center, Archbold have both clinched a playoff spot, and Swanton has been mathematically eliminated. Liberty Center has also clinched a top 8 spot and will play at home. Delta and Ottawa-Glandorf are both on the outside looking in and are long shots to make it. Just looking at some teams in this region, breaking it down real quick. Liberty Center, these are current standings as at 1, Oak Harbor at 2, Archbold at 3. 4 is Edison, 5 Coldwater, 6 Liberty Benton, 7 Huron, 8 Genoa area, 9 Pleasant, 10 Eastwood, 11 Highland, 12 Indian Lake, 13 Spencerville. That's another school, Michael coached. There you go. 14 Elmwood, 15 Fredericktown, and 16 North Union. So, guys, what are your thoughts on this region here?
Doom.
Yeah,
Region of Doom.
Very tough. Well, it was the same thing last year. It was a very tough region last year. Like Archbold's, they're one of the better teams in the area playing wise. But then again, you look back a couple weeks ago and Liberty Center just dismantled them.
they did.
So
I think that would be something we saw, actually, it was a few years ago, and that was when I believe DJ Newman was still at Archbold.
Yep.
We saw
2 years ago.
Yeah, just a couple of years ago that they actually matched up, once in the regular season, once in the playoffs, and they split that series.
Yeah.
And I believe that was when
Carly Roth
kicked
the field goal to win it.
Yeah, she came up with a huge field goal to upset them. And, that was when Archbold, I think, was the favorite at the time. So that'd be a curious, I would actually like to see that matchup because a lot of questions have came from the area. What do you think the odds are that Archbold could beat Liberty Center in the playoffs? But, just thinking of that question, Liberty Center is the most complete team that I've probably seen in Northwest Ohio in probably 10 to 15 years. I mean, they are so deep. They have, I believe, what they say, high 60 kids, 68. And we talked about earlier in one of the hot takes, we said, I don't really know that if you take away their starters, that they lose a beat because those the backups come in and they just keep on rolling and rolling and rolling, and they're so deep. And like Keith, you said it perfectly just a couple weeks ago with Liberty Center. If you would have told us that Liberty Center would come back this year and be better than they were last year, we would have said you're crazy with everyone,
crazy,
all the athletes that
Yes.
they brought. But somehow they just keep doing it. So,
Yep. I'm looking at that on Drew Pasteur's website. They've got, Liberty Center's already in, home twice. He's got this is probabilities. But he's got Oak Harbor and Coldwater already in and home, and it says 94%. Like is his probability they're going to host twice, and you're 9-0 in Coldwater,
8 and then 4.
Yeah, and then,
So it makes sense. Well, I think kind of to piggyback that, what I think is crazy is the way that Joe Idle has it laid out is the top 5: Liberty Center, Oak Harbor, Archbold, Edison, and Coldwater. It has, with a win, all have the possibility of being number 1. Now, if Liberty Center wins, they're the number 1. But if they were to lose, you could have any one of those teams behind them with a win potentially jump them. And it doesn't matter until you go deeper down because top 8, top 4. But to show how good that region is, I mean, you have 5 teams that could potentially be the number 1 in that region, and you could have a 10-0 Coldwater be sitting anywhere from 3 to 5.
right.
Having just stopped Marion's 41-game winning streak.
That's what I was just looking at. I was just like, holy smokes! They're 9-0. They're sitting at 5 right now, according to Pasteur's. And maybe only be able to hold one home game.
Wasn't that something that Drew brought up, that Liberty Center and Coldwater could possibly match up if they're on the same side? We saw that matchup last year.
The quarterback was injured, I believe.
Yeah.
He wasn't very mobile.
I believe the doctor.
I
don't know. You might know.
A broken leg.
Broken leg, and the doctor said he doesn't really recommend
He
playing
played earlier in the year with it.
Oh,
he didn't
really?
know the game that he did it. If I remember right, he didn't know, and he played for a good portion of the game that way, and then went out. I'm trying to think how this went. He was out for a couple of weeks, and the kid is extremely tough. He played with his brother.
That's what
there,
I mean.
State champions in baseball, basketball, and stuff. And he came back, and the game that he came back, they weren't sure, but it was kind of one of these. Well, is it going to get any worse? No. Okay, watch this. And then he engineered the game-winning drive. So it's just those kids. That's what I talked about earlier when you asked about the MAC. I can't explain it. There's just something about these kids where you go hard for 4 years, then you go, I can walk away. All right, I'm not Ross Holman. I'm not Dirksen. I'm not any of these kids. I'm not going D1. So guess what? I got 60 games. Well, it would now be 64 because if you factor 16 games a year, that's how they look at it and say, I have 16 games a year because we're not playing 10. We're thinking we're going all the way to Kenton or Akron or the Moon or wherever we're going to play the championship games.
No kidding.
And like that makes kids dangerous. If you're good enough, and they have had for years where they'll convert a running back or a safety who will be the next quarterback, but they have a terrific quarterback in Balin Blockberger this year who he's been banged up, but still they have the Harlebert boys who are terrific, and I saw a video with their backflips.
I saw that too. I was just talking about that the other day. He was they were lined up in victory formation, and he must have been the running back that was 10, 15 yards back, and so they need it. And he did a full backflip in his pads. I said, if you can do a full backflip like Tyreek Hill in the NFL with full pads on, that's quite a bit of athleticism.
Yeah,
so.
He's like I said, there's something else, and that's why I said earlier that truly is the region of doom. Because if you go outside the top 5, I don't see how anybody else but one of those top 5 win that region and have a good chance at playing on the last weekend.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next. Looking at Division 6, Region 22. Some teams that we look at, we're looking at Columbus Grove, Tenora, Wayne Trace, Evergreen, Paulding, Fairview, Hicksville, out of this region. So at this point in time, Columbus Grove has clinched a home playoff game, and Tenora has clinched a playoff spot and has a high chance to possibly host in round 1. I think that's changed since then. So we'll kind of see where they're sitting at as we take a look. And it looks as if only one of the Paulding County schools, like we talked before with Drew, depending on a win between Paulding and Wayne Trace, will actually get a playoff spot. And that game is going to be a dogfight. We saw last week the physicality that Paulding and Antwerp had. Some kids went to the hospital too, and it was pretty gruesome. And this is a rivalry game. And like I said, playoff berth or go home, and conference game. What more can you say? So I'm really excited to see this game and see who ends up winning it. So looking at this region, we're looking at current rankings right now. And that's number 1, Bluffton, 2, Columbia, 3, Colonel Crawford, 4, Columbus Grove, 5, Cary, 6, Ottawa Hills, 7, Tenora, 8, Western Reserve, 9 Winford, 10 Crestview, 11 Black River, 12 Seneca East, 13 Margaretta, 14 Mapleton, 15 Lakota, 16 Paulding, and then Wayne Trace is right at 17. So, guys, what are your thoughts on this region?
Pastures has just the opposite. He has Wayne Trace at 16, Paulding at 17, but he's basically saying both of them have to have a win to get in. And Tenora sitting at 7. They're looking possibly playing Crestview. The way it looks is coming in. I mean, I think it'd be a good matchup for Sonora round 1.
Keith, AJ?
Yeah, Bluffton's, well, Michael could probably speak more about it than us, but they've just been playing lights out on defense. I mean, I don't know how many shutouts they have this season, but it's 3 or 4 or 5. I mean, 7.
Wow.
7 in a row.
Wow.
So Bluffton's going to be a tough out here.
Yeah, and that's going to be a good game to watch this week here, that Columbus Grove Bluffton game. It's going to be quite the game. And the Paulding Wayne Trace game, that's got a lot riding on it. Who's going to be in the playoffs and not in the playoffs, as well as it being a rivalry. So this region here has a lot riding this week.
Yeah, and I think, too, you look at this, I think looking in, I think some of the favorites, Bluffton obviously being up there at number 1 already. Columbus Grove, I like the way they're really playing right now. And obviously Columbus Grove and Bluffton play each other, so that's going to really shake things out here to start. If Columbus Grove wins, they could potentially lead to a top 4 seed, or keeping them there, which could end up leading to 2 home playoff games. So there's a lot that can still shake out. Tenora, I think Tenora could kind of be the dark horse. I know obviously we follow them, but really seeing them develop their passing game here of late, and we talk about being multidimensional, especially on the offensive side of thing, and Tenora's kind of come in their own. I know that they really haven't played the toughest competition in the last half, but they've came through in some big games, the Ayersville game, the Wayne Trace game. Even though things that didn't go right, they still held it together and finished with a win.
After you take away those first 3 games with 4 with Antwerp, I guess, the defense has played pretty impressive, honestly. And even offensively, like we discussed earlier, more balanced this season, as you would have thought would be the opposite, Tenora being a running team. But the last couple of weeks with the horrible weather conditions, we've honestly passed better than we've ran. I don't know if that's by plan or not, but it can only be positive heading into the playoffs, because you think it's Sonora, think of the wing tee, run left, run right, run up the middle. And right now with Dominic Graziani.
It's not like my Friday night every night. That's literally how I spend my Friday nights.
Watching the wing tee.
Right.
But yeah, Graziani's playing as well as anybody in the area as far as a quarterback.
Yeah, guys, when you look at Bluffton, he mentioned seven shutouts. That's kind of reminds me of the team. When you were there, AJ, we talked about this before. When you guys had Landon Dravis at quarterback, and you guys shut out everybody, and they gave up one kickoff return to Edgerton for 7 points, and then you gave 18 points to I think it was Parkway that year. It's the only points you gave up that year, and I think 12 of those points were to the JV team. And then you guys got beat, in the second round of playoffs, I believe, to LCC.
Yep.
So just because you've been shut down a lot of teams doesn't mean Tenora was blowing people up.
Yeah, I think they've allowed 28 points all season, Bluffton.
Yeah.
Which is...
Nonetheless, that's impressive.
They were all in the first 2 weeks. But
were they?
Yeah.
That's
2 weeks.
And Oregon got 21 of those 28.
Wow. That's nuts.
And that's the backyard rivalry. So that's, that's a whole other thing.
Right.
The last time they allowed points, that was week 2 when they gave up that. But they gave up 7 in the opener, 21 in the second week, and they've had 7 consecutive shutouts.
That's impressive. I don't care who you're playing. You have 7 straight shutouts.
That's the argument.
I mean,
too,
I don't care who you're
NWC is not
playing.
great this year, but
And thumped Ayersville 42-0.
A punt return, an interception for a touchdown,
a JV team,
anything. Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's break down the last division here. Looking at Division 7, Region 26. Out of this area, again, we cover Patrick Henry, Antwerp, Ayersville, North Central, Eden, Edgerton, Montpelier, Hilltop. They're all the teams that we cover. Patrick Henry and Antwerp have clinched top 8 spots and home playoff games so far. Ayersville, North Central have also clinched playoff spots at this time. Eden controls their destiny, and Montpelier is currently on the outside looking in. Hilltop has been mathematically eliminated. So just looking at this region real quick. Current standings right now: number 1, Calvert; number 2, Patrick Henry; 3, Macomb; 4, Hopewell Loudon; 5, Antwerp; 6, Waynesville Goshen. I say that right. Goshen. 7, Pandora Gilboa. 8, Lima Central Catholic. 9, Ayersville. 10, Upper Scioto Valley. 11, North Central. 12, Lipsick. 13 Arlington, 14 Eden, 15 Crestview, 16 Gibsonburg, and 17 is at Montpelier. So they're on the outside looking in, like we said. So, guys, thoughts on this region here?
I think the loss by Antwerp to Ayersville a couple weeks ago, as we talked about, was kind of the eye-opener. Like, they just came out last week. Looked like a completely different team. Like, we're just ready to restart the fire and get ready for the playoffs to start, because they just came out and just took Paulding and dominated from start to finish, really.
Yeah, and, I'm looking at you got Ayersville sitting there at 8 or sitting there at 9, probably an 8-9 matchup with LCC. That may not be fortunate for them, especially with the injury they just had.
Right.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, before that injury, honestly, you could say that Ayersville could have been one of the favorites, and which there still could be.
Right.
But you take Knieven out of their backfield, and boy, I'd like to see a healthy Ayersville team run the playoffs. I mean, they very well could have, honestly.
And I look at things here, and I said last week's podcast, when Antwerp dropped to Ayersville, I think that's going to do them good come playoff time, because we talked about there were some things that I think were exploited, especially starting the Tenora game, about stopping the run.
Yep.
Antwerp didn't really have a running attack. And I think I saw Reed Leachy. He went out and, he's been developing. He's a good running back. I think they incorporated him a little bit more. But I think it was just kind of an eye-opening experience. And I think that's really going to kind of propel them into the playoff picture. But, looking at some other things, Lima Central Catholic, that's a tough team come playoff time. We watched them last year play Antwerp at Findlay, and man, they just picked apart Antwerp. And that's one team. I know they're sitting at number 8 right now. That's one team I do not want to play in the playoffs for sure.
That's because they do a little bit of everything well. Their quarterback and Carson Parker is a terrific baseball player, and he's got Billy Burke, who, again, I'm also told his dad wants me to point this out every time I talk about him, that he's a tremendous guitar player.
Awesome.
Kid's a hell of an athlete as well, by the way. But losses early on. I mean, they lost to St. John's on a Saturday afternoon, one of those weird games at Champions Field at Stadium Park, 42-40. They lose again to Cary the next week. They get throttled by Bishop Hartley. But they've had a little bit of weird luck, too, because they win 2 in a row, and then they're supposed to play Richmond Heights at home on a Friday, and Richmond Heights said, we're not coming. Due to a mix of academic ineligibility and injuries that were supposed to be cleared up by the night before, you lose homecoming. If you're LCC, you're obviously not very happy about it.
Right.
Head coach gets to go see his kid walk at Grove that night, so it's kind of a win-loss, I guess. Beat up on Cardinal Stritch. They have I think, better than 5-4 Fort Loramie team this week. You're right. And whether they go in with 5 wins or they go in with 6 wins, it's still a dangerous team. I mean, they'll be anywhere from 2-10 with a win, 7-15 with a loss. I don't know that if I'm one of those teams, and with Patrick Henry at the top, if they win, they could potentially be the 2, because Calvert they could actually be the 1, because Calvert's got a big week this week when they take on Hope Loudon. So that's the 1-3. But that's not a team that I want coming into my place and going, our season depends on beating these guys, because nobody's going to give them a chance against these top seeds. And there are essentially 2 playoff games this weekend with Calvert and Hopewell Loudon, who are 1-4. But Macomb's got a BVC title game in Liberty Township against LB to get ready for. And Macomb has beaten LB the last handful of years, but that's not an easy way to get yourself into going, hey, we need to win this game to maybe be the number 1 overall seed.
Right.
And it's a dangerous Macomb team, because outside of Macomb, I bet most people couldn't tell you 3 starters. But they like it like that. They had Tanner Schrader when they won state.
Yep.
But outside of that, everybody said, who? Well, watch this.
Yep.
And I mean, Coach Algie's got a terrific game plan, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were the team that comes out of this region.
Yeah, I think very well said, because they're ones. They're very well coached. I actually played with Tanner Schrader at Findlay for a little bit too. So
he's a beast.
Excellent athlete. I mean,
is there anything he wasn't good at?
I don't know. He could dunk. And he was like 5'8".
He's another backflip guy.
Yeah, he is. He is another backflip.
And he's all state as a punter.
Yeah. Seriously.
One of the best quarterbacks in the state. He's a punter. First team all state because they couldn't give him anything else.
That's crazy. But, one kind of matchup that I think would be intriguing, If Antwerp wins this week, they have a 30% chance to play North Central, and we've heard a lot of slack from fans in North Central about wanting us to talk and hype North Central up more. Well, I think Tony said it best, and we're going to see where their money where their mouth is, especially if they play Antwerp, and kind of see test the waters out and see where they kind of compete with some of these other teams.
And honestly, talking about that game, Antwerp versus North Central, we all know North Central pounds the rock.
Yeah.
And we've seen that Antwerp has struggled to stop that.
Yeah.
That could be an interesting matchup, guys. As weird as it sounds, that could be a very interesting matchup if it comes down to that.
Mm-hmm.
Look out for Waynesville Goshen, too.
All right.
They can run the ball exceptionally well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like we talked about with Antwerp, it's just one of those things that they got to learn to stop the run. If they do that, I think Antwerp will take care of business.
Yep.
So, all right, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back with our next segment. Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. The Thunderdome is your local indoor softball and baseball facility offering private lessons, turf infield, batting cages, and pitching machine rentals, even offering a golf simulator. Located in Archbold, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-906-3643. Welcome back to the NWO Sports Podcast, and we are on to our favorite section here on the Hot Takes presented by BSN Sports. So we got a bunch of good ones, and the first one is actually kind of comical, especially for you Cowboy fans out there. So does Liberty Center win it all, or do they continue being the Cowboys of Northwest Ohio? So per Drew Pasture, Liberty Center has the best chance to win it all in Division 5 with 24%. Next closest is Perry with 19% chance. And personally, I think the only team that could beat Liberty Center after doing a little bit of research in the division is, in fact, Perry. We've talked, especially over the last couple of weeks, Liberty Center is so dominant, and their defense is firing on all cylinders. Their offense is, for some reason, people cannot stop the run attack from Liberty Center. It does not matter. We were talking, do you put 10 guys in the box to try to stop them? Because what else do you do? So, guys, what are your thoughts on this hot take?
It's I chuckle because I love the Cowboys. Kind of always stumble.
Yeah, I'm not really here for the Cowboys. I actually thought about leaving.
Yeah, Cowboys always stumble. I always give crap about Dak Prescott, but yeah, I don't
give him more money.
Give him more money.
Maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, give him more money. He'll throw the ball better. No. I think I'm with you, Logan. Liberty Center seems to be doing. Liberty Center is going to have to fall on their face, I think, for somebody to get a good shot at them because it's too dominant right now. I mean, from what we've seen.
I think that's probably what Liberty Center is probably going to have to actually play a bad game as opposed to somebody actually playing a good game.
Yeah, you're saying that the only team that can beat Liberty Center is probably Perry, but I would make the argument that I think the only team that can beat Liberty Center is themselves.
Correct.
They're really going to have to mess up, fumbles, turnovers, mistakes, that kind of thing. If they play clean football to the playoffs, I definitely think they take it all.
I would like to see in a week or so how the entire run to state breaks out, because I think it's going to be a lot about seeding. You talked about, I think Coldwater is that team that if anyone has a shot to beat them in that region, I think it's Coldwater. And I say that because I talked earlier about Chip Otten. I have a massive amount of respect for him because they will come up with things where they've seen teams from up around here that people have said, they're just going to dust Coldwater, and then it doesn't happen, and it's like you have the guy at the top of the mountain, you have to actually kick him down the mountain before you can take his spot. And it's kind of one of those weird things where, again, Coldwater's got Marion Local this weekend and the 50-50 and the lady who wins, who won't leave the game, makes the cop sit there with $14,000. That actually happened one year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she won the 50-50, and then the game ended with a field goal. It was one of the 2 or 3 straight years that ended with a field goal that decided the game. It'll probably only be about 10,000 this year. They're selling tickets, by the way, in both cities right now, and it's only Tuesday. But for me, it always comes down to teams that have been there and they understand that. I mean, Coldwater's got kind of a bad taste from the way the last couple of years have gone. They don't like starting basketball early over there. But it's those kind of teams where if someone is able to beat Liberty Center, it's going to be a team like that who have seen those monsters over the years, where you've seen Kirtland, and you've seen those kind of teams where everybody comes in and says, you don't have a snowball's chance of winning this game. And they just kind of look and say, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll see you in about 2 hours.
Right.
And more often than not, they've been able to do it. Not saying that's what's going to happen, but for me, looking at that, you look at all those teams and you go, all right, who do I believe is going to be there, depending on how the bracket faces out? I would like to say Spencerville as a Bearcat alum. Probably not going to happen this year, but I just, for me, I think it'll come down to Coldwater Liberty Center, whether that's the third round, whether it's regional finals, whatever it is. I think it's going to be a good game, and that one makes me sad that every game is on Friday night till the finals.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because one of my favorite things is being able to cover a game Friday and Saturday. And that would be a Saturday night sellout Lima or wherever crazy place they would put it.
Yeah, I guess that's the one unfortunate thing about the playoffs, because I always loved going on Friday and then go watch or cover another game on Saturday.
I like making money too, so there's also that.
That's a good point as well. But yeah, last year there were so many additional games we got to go watch just because they were split on Friday and Saturday. So that's kind of unfortunate. And I don't know, maybe they'll get back to that sometime. But
if you can make money off it.
Yeah, that's always a big question.
My big thing is not to beat the horse here, but if you have a referee shortage, why would you cut that in half then?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And obviously from a media perspective, I can't be in two places covering two games at once. It's just, you can't do the setup. But that's what I think is unfortunate about this whole thing is the kids of, you guys would do two different games, Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, now you're going to have to pick, do you want to do Tenora? Do you want to do Liberty Center?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Now half of those kids aren't going to get as much coverage as they would have.
Sure. That's another valid point. And one quick, point. I don't know. Did you guys see the increase of ticket prices recently for playoffs?
Yes.
If you buy a ticket at the gate, it's $15. I said,
Ridiculous.
that's crazy. If you take you're just going to watch your son or daughter play, and
Yeah.
I know this is kind of a big topic about the state, but I guess my thing is I just don't know where it all goes. I guess I don't know.
I heard they have.
We could sit here for another 3 hours talking about that. But it is, if you talk to any AD around the area, like any host school probably is not actually making a single cent or
They
losing.
lose money. They lose money. We were
I-
told they lose money.
I had an AD tell me for baseball one year they made $83.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
And they hosted an entire round, right, with multiple games.
Yeah.
They said, well, why'd you do it? I said, you know what? I kind of asked myself that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was,
A lot of hassle.
I think, 19. So that was even before COVID when
Right.
you had even more, restrictions. If you have a 50-50, it's actually 25, 25, 25,
Right.
25
Yep.
because you have to break it up again. And then that's why people get mad because places like Lima Stadium charge $5 for parking.
Yep.
But they have to because
You
they
gotta
have
make money.
to make money.
Right. Yep.
Well, you only get half your concessions. Okay. I mean, that's unfortunate to me, and I think you're doing a disservice to the kids
Right.
by making it so expensive. I had a parent at OG tell me last year when the girls made their run a couple of years to state that it would cost $100 a game. I love my kid, but I'm shelling out, 6, 7, 8 games just to go watch you play.
Right. That adds up too.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy. And
That's nuts.
there is a thing, if you maybe follow Eric Goodwin, who's the AD at Coldwater, on Twitter, he has pointed out there's a video about the spreadsheet and where the money supposedly goes. And I'm not trying to get blackballed, but it's fascinating to play the Follow the Money Trail. And there's a guy, can't think of his name, from the Toledo Blade.
Yeah, he read
who's
an
done
article.
a really good job of it.
Yep.
And he's getting some information that is just kind of fascinating. And remember, the OHSAA is a voluntary organization.
Yeah, he wrote a really nice
Think about
article,
that.
I believe was it over the summer or
Yeah, it
spring
was over the
perhaps?
summer, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
I just feel like ever since, when Jerry Snodgrass was there and that he kind of, I don't know if he was kind of saw the writing on the wall or was kind of forced out. I don't know. I always felt like he kind of was for the kids. I don't know.
Right.
But ever since then, I feel like it's kind of gone downhill as well. So
I just get frustrated with that because you're taking advantage of. I mean, their parents and grandparents going out and watching their kids play and their grandkids play, and then the state wants to come in and start taking advantage of that and stealing money. You're not going to watch the Buckeyes play and filling the stadium with 105,000 people. You know what I mean? And it's just it. I'll stop because I'll start getting passionate and saying stuff I probably shouldn't say.
Want to get blackballed?
Yeah, I don't want to say stuff I shouldn't say, but
But
it's
we'll
ridiculous.
move on to the next hot take here. So next hot take, folks need to understand football is physical. No more two-hand tap in the GMC.
It's not just the GMC.
No, it's not just the GMC
right now.
Right. Well, this has been an issue throughout the year among multiple leagues in Northwest Ohio. I don't know if it's been in your area, but there's been some teams saying this whole physicality, and there's been a lot of dirty hits too. So I guess here's where I stand. I absolutely love physical and hardworking football teams. Don't get me wrong. I played football. I love it. But there's a caveat to it. Don't get physical and dirty confused, because there have been certain plays and players that have kind of maliciously target other players in the area. We're not going to name people, obviously, but that's not physical or manly. Blindside hitting people or like diving into knees. We've seen all kinds of stuff. None of that's physical. Physical is, to me, blocking a man 10 yards downfield, planting him into the ground until the echo of the whistle. Physical is going mano-a-mano. You're squaring a guy up, tackling him on defense with a huge hit. There's a hard drawn line between being physical and being dirty. And yes, I understand that there's players that may accidentally hit someone, like if you hit helmets or something. It's the game of football. It's inevitable at times, but you can definitely tell what plays are done with malicious intent, and that's where I stand. So I guess, what are your guys' thoughts?
My team good, your team bad.
Yeah.
My team clean, your team dirty.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so ridiculous. And like with using crowd mics, it's fascinating what you can pick up during games.
Yeah.
Sometimes if your team is on the road, you get other people's crowd in front of you. And I had a game, I won't tell you where, earlier this year, that the entire game I'm picking up this crowd noise from a game that their team is winning. And just listening to the fans, these officials are not smart, and two of them are from the town that we were in. And it's just fascinating to hear how everything that the other team does is dirty. So nothing surprises me anymore.
For me, the helmet-to-helmet contact, you can tell when it's malicious.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
can.
And like even going to the NFL, it started to try to, prevent the launching and the head,
right.
The head down and hitting somebody helmet to helmet. That's, the top crown of the helmet. I get it. But there's a reason they wear their freaking helmets, because people were getting banged in the head. That's why they have helmets on, because head-to-head contact does happen. And now it's like, if you bang heads, it's a flag. And you're going to bang heads once in a while. That's and I get frustrated with, and I'm going to talk more about like college football or pro football because you see it on TV. I get more frustrated with that because these people will back this up, and I get frustrated with announcers, and believe it or not, we're announcers when we broadcast a game, but I get frustrated with announcers
too
because they back this play up. They'll show the replay, they slow it down at like 160 frames a second or something, and they're like, "Oh my, you see how he hit his head?" That happened like that, and he's going in to tackle, and I just saw one last night. He was going in, Herbert was going in, goes to slide, and the guy was already engaged in the tackle, and they hit head to head. And they threw a flag on it. It's like, you guys, you realize how fast that just happened? Yep. He was already engaging himself in the tackle, and then all of a sudden the quarterback decides to slide, and they banged head to head. He didn't do it with malicious intent. You know what I mean? And that's where I get frustrated with the targeting that they've originally set out to reduce to what it's evolved to now.
I saw the same thing in a game last weekend where the defensive back came and put his shoulder through the guy's shoulder, but because of how he hit him, the guy turned his head and a face mask glanced off the side of his helmet, and they called it a penalty. And I thought, if you're a football coach, how do you teach tackling anymore? Well, first of all, I don't think anybody does, because I see a lot of mixed tackling. That's a whole other topic. But I mean, I can't imagine going out and telling a kid, okay, it used to be take this side and just put it through his chest. All right, well, now that's probably a penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're just, at least personally, sticking to high school. Nowadays, there's so much video out there, like say 5, 6, 7 years ago, very seldom since COVID, really, everything for video has pretty much exploded, sometimes to the detriment of us, but it has. So now every little single thing is exploited, Twitter, Facebook, social media, and a lot of times the parents in the stands, the mothers, the grandmas, they don't actually understand the rules. They just think that that's my son and they're doing stuff bad to him, so that's dirty. Well, first you have to rewind and actually understand the rules and whether or not that's malicious or not.
That's absolutely the point that gets me the most is a lot of the people you see arguing on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff have no idea what the game is even like.
Yep.
When you're out there and you have, that split second moment where you've got to either, go left or go right because he could cut one way or the other. You don't have time to think about where you're hitting him. You're trying to make the tackle, and if he happens to slide or somebody else bumps him and he falls a certain direction and you hit head to head, or it looks dirty or something like that, that's the way the game is. And as a healthcare professional that deals with concussions and stuff like that, it's part of the game. I don't want to downplay concussions because it is a serious thing, but it is also part of the risk of playing football. Now, yes, there should be rules against targeting maliciously, things like that, and measures in place to help reduce it. But you go in playing football knowing that is a chance, just like you go into playing football knowing there is a chance that you're going to break an arm or break an ankle, things like that. It's part of playing sports. And as long as it's not being done with malicious intent, you got to live with it.
And you bringing that up, AJ, is a great point. I think I hear a lot of parents now, they don't let their kids play football because they're worried about concussions. I would be more concerned about my kid playing basketball and blowing an ACL.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if I have a daughter.
Yeah.
I was worried to death, but when my daughter played basketball, that she was going to blow an ACL.
Thanks a lot. Mine's 2, and I haven't even started to think calling it stuff yet.
I've always said if you would
write
be
that down on my worry list here real quick.
you would be a multi-zillionaire, if that's actually a word, if you could figure out what's causing the ACL injuries in these younger kids. I mean, when I played, I know it was in the late 80s, but I don't remember anybody blowing an ACL. I don't remember anybody with a concussion.
Or it was a bigger story when it happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was like if somebody blew her knee out, there was one kid that had a knee problem, and I don't remember if it was an ACL, but there was like one kid out of my whole high school career that had a knee problem.
It's because they waited till the 90s when my mom was in school because she blew her ACL out. So they were probably just waiting for her. So, but yeah, no, that's a good topic. And like I said, I think the big thing is malicious intent. You can tell when people are going out there
absolutely.
to truly hurt people.
Yep.
Right.
And like AJ said too, and Tony mentioned it, I mean, you have a split second for decisions, and you can tell when it's on accident, when kids are actually trying to hurt someone. So, yeah, interesting hot take. There's been a lot of talk, especially this year. And like Keith said, I think that was a valid point that everything is exploited now with, every game has, not every game, but probably 70-80% of games I feel like have video coverage or some kind of media coverage and people talking about it. It's more than it's ever been. And, someone has a dirty hit that gets put out all over social media and then people start talking about it. But that's just been something that's been really prevalent this year. So I think that was a good hot take. Let's look at the next one. And we talked about this one previously, too. Chain gangs are getting no love. No one seems to measure for first downs anymore. So, Michael, I don't know how it is for you guys down there, but for us here, no one, I don't think we've even seen one. Have we seen one measurement this year?
Not this season.
Covering Tenora games?
No.
It's just been unreal.
I think the referees get paid by the hour, and bringing the chains out takes longer time, so that my pay is getting cut because I'm. It's just ridiculous.
Just look across the field, and mind you, most of these are elder gentlemen. Now, I know about these fellows, but I have glasses, and I can't see that far. But these gentlemen, who are probably in their 50s and 60s, have laser vision. They can look across a 50-yard field and somehow say that that's a first down or not. With crooked lines, mind you.
Yeah, the crooked lines for sure. Yeah, it's been wild. There have been a lot of plays this year where it's been, depending on where the spot falls, whether it could be one way or another, and they're still getting up out of the pile and they're signaling first down.
Yes.
It's like, what happened to measuring for that first down? Like,
give you some background. Give you some background, Michael. We were at a game, and I won't mention what game it is, so I don't want to call those refs out. But we were at a game, and the one referee on the far side of the field. So of course we don't have eagle eyes. I'm not saying we do, but I watched the referee on the far side of the field is clearly a yard short of the marker, and the referee on our side of the field is walking up, going like this.
And it was several times that game as well.
What are you doing?
It wasn't a one-time
thing. The other guys
thing.
clearly spotted the ball at least a yard short, and the referee on the other side of the field is going like that. And they finally moved the chains. I'm like,
I facepalm because I hate that I have an answer to this, really. I wish I could just be like, no, I haven't seen that at all. I've done 9 football games this season, and in all 9, I've had at least one time where I'm like, how did you arrive at this point? And thankfully we have a very good vantage point from St. Mary's. It's just low enough that you're sitting about at the 40-yard line, and you can see across the field. And I must get a lot of these same guys. We've had some great officiating crews, but there have been times where I will say either short or first down, and my color guy will write it down because he's doing stats, and then I'll go into either first or whatever the next down was because the spot, it must have hit a rock or something, or like these chain links are further apart than I think they are, or closer. And like you guys said, they'll just be a guy. He'll be over there, and no, first down. Well, how do you know on the last play they knocked you on the ground? How do you know it's a first down?
Speaking of concussions.
Right, right. He hit me at 10 yards. I'm 10 yards away. It stands to reason, right? Well, no, he got knocked out of bounds at 5. He ran into you. Yeah, but there are definitely games where I just scratch my head of, we have all this technology and we can't, get this. And St. Mary's has this really nice thing where, I don't know if you guys have been able to see it, but between the chains they have the digital marker, so it tells you at all time how far away from the front chain that it is.
Really? Wow.
Oh, really?
So when you get it down, but you're trusting that guy's in the right spot,
Right.
So if it's as a penalty, he's now 15 yards behind, so it'll light up and say 15. Well, the other part of it, they have the 1, 2, or 3, or 4, but that's really nice.
Wow.
If he's in the right spot.
Yeah.
And if you believe, that. So when they get to those kind of plays where you go to third and less than a yard, it just says 1. And I'm thinking, it should be 1 the other way. So, yeah, that's been a big problem down south.
Now we talk about that. Now, did you guys watch the game Sunday night?
I was just going to bring that up. I said on the flip side.
It's just, maybe that's why on Sunday night, remember who was playing Sunday night?
It was the 49ers Browns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy goes out to measure the chain. He measures it, and the ball's clearly touching the stake. He picks it up, he moves it over, and I'm like, wait a minute.
It's almost like they moved the stick, the angle, so it wasn't a first down.
And I joked around. I thought, maybe this is why they don't. I immediately thought of that when it happened. I thought, well, maybe this is why we don't measure in high school, because they don't get it right anyway.
I had a high school one where they walked across, the guy grabs the ball and pulls it back a yard, then they measured.
What in the world?
Yikes.
And my color guy's like, did he just move the ball? Yeah,
Oh,
dude,
my
a
gosh.
full yard.
What in the world?
Oh, they're probably going to be short. He measures it, and somehow they got the first down. And I just kind of sat like, I have to describe this now. I thought he said it was 4th and 1. It's 1st and 10. I don't even know.
I'm glad it's not just happening up here.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely happening.
That's a good one. So, a couple more hot takes here. Next one. I thought it was kind of interesting. Someone wanted to know, what are the biggest surprises and disappointments from the season, looking at teams and players? I can start this one. I think biggest surprises, I think Montpelier, you got to throw them in.
Yeah.
One of the best seasons they've had in probably 10 to 15 years, honestly.
Yep.
A nice winning record. They have some really nice athletes over there. They're doing great things overall. But I think surprising player, that's a tough one. I might go with maybe Trey Rubenstein. I feel like he's one that's really stepped up this season and has kind of come into his own, and one of the most athletic kids in Northwest Ohio as well. But what are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
Surprise.
Team-wise, biggest surprise? Honestly, this is going to sound weird, but one of the biggest surprises for me is probably Liberty Center and how good they actually are.
Yeah, I agree.
We talked about how much they were going to lose. Kind of like, well, they might have to, they might struggle a little bit next year trying to rebuild, and that's probably one of the biggest surprises for me when it comes to a player. Maybe Jack Hurst from Archbold coming in there and taking over for Carson Dominic, and getting some yards and getting some carries and helping that team be successful.
That's a very valid point, Tony, about Liberty Center. We talked about it almost every episode. Is you take the team that they had last year, pluck those kids away, and you're thinking, God, Coach Muller's got a great program and a solid team, but are they an 8-2 team coming in this year? And they're actually better than they were last year, which is just hard to believe. But Paulding, I guess, would be probably a surprising team, even though they could probably have a 5-5 season and maybe be out of the playoffs looking in or sneak in one way or another. But if you're Paulding and Coach Minzy and you finish 5-5, I would say that's a solid starting point for building a program that for the last 10, 15 years has probably been on the outside looking in most times, just struggling to win 2 or 3 games a season.
Keith, I'm surprised you didn't bring up surprise player for you. Your man.
Oh, Houston Miranda.
Yeah. He's had a big season.
He came out of nowhere, really. I mean,
especially with PH starting to run the ball again. He's done a very nice job at that. He's one of the top rushers in the area this year.
I agree. Yep.
Yeah, and speaking of Trey Rubenstein, Napoleon, I think, is surprising a lot of people. Not so surprising, I don't think, to us here, because we've kind of talked about, give them a few weeks and they'll build into their season, and they really have. And I think a lot of people at the beginning of the season were just counting them out. Napoleon's not worth anything. They can't win, whatever. And now they've won 5 straight games. And I think that's kind of surprising some people that, wow, they actually are a solid team, and they could, they are looking at going to playoffs. And I think that's a surprising thing for the community, not necessarily us, but.
Michael, what about you?
There's a handful of teams. A lot of people want to say Salina, because I've been asked about this recently, that a lot of people said Salina wasn't going to be this good, right? Said, I think a lot of coaches have told me Salina was going to be this good. They were always a year away. They have 3 different kids who can run and throw the ball from the quarterback position. Defense is playing lights out. They have a chance to win a conference title for the first time in a long time. And even if they lose, they share it with Wapak. They would like not to do that. Anytime you can shut Travis Moyer out, he's got enough titles, right? That's what Brendan Bader's probably thinking. But them, and I think a team that is potentially could make some noise in the playoffs is Minster. Minster's 8-1 right now. Their only loss, obviously, to a team that is going to win the conference one way or the other. And they lost their starting quarterback and one of their best basketball players in Brogan Steffi earlier on in the year. He was going to be one of the best players in Northwest Ohio this year. Just the way the offense has been. They bring in another kid, and they don't miss a beat. They're 8-1 right now. They go on the road this weekend to Holefield to take on an Angry Versailles team after they lost to Marion by a point. They missed an extra point. They're not real happy. Minster's one for me. And then I think a little bit 2 teams that are playing each other this weekend. In Bluffton at 9-0, Columbus Grove at 7-2, that the winner claims the NWC title. You look at this, and Grove started out slow, but their last 5 matchups have been 203-34. I mean, Grove has had their number. Clymer Stadium is an awful place to try to win if you're an opposing team. I don't know how Bluffton's going to go, and it's fascinating because it kind of going with the players, the quarterbacks in this game. You look at Trenton Barraza, the running back, 10 scores. He's number 2 in the league in rushing. His quarterback, Landon Best, 16 touchdowns, 1 interception. It has been, I would say, the best part of what that offense has been, but Barraza does so many things well. Offenses who combine to score almost 80 points a game. But Garrett Bogart, the quarterback for Bluffton, has been just as good, just under 1,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, no interceptions. Those are 2 teams that a lot of people said, yeah, they'll be pretty good, but a lot of people thought maybe the NWC, Lipstick in their last year, they suffered losses to both of these teams. That within itself, I mean, for me, Bluffton is a pleasant surprise. They were always going to be good this year, but not what they've done since week 2 good. Maybe a lot of people didn't pick that one up.
Yeah, I would say both those are valid. All right, let's move on. Last hot take here, and it's not really, I mean, I guess it is a hot take, but
part of it is.
Yeah, I don't know how you can argue with it, because this one is Marion local head coach Tim Goodwin is the best coach in OHSAA football history. And I believe you actually sent in the hot take and submitted this info, but Marion local has not allowed a 40-plus point game in their last 190 outings. Next closest is Kirtland at number 2 with 124. And I believe Tim Goodwin is also averaging like 12.5 wins a year since he's been there. I'm not sure.
He's picked up his 300th win. He's only been there since 99.
Unbelievable.
That's correct.
And I stole those facts, by the way, the first couple from Drew Pastor, so shout out to him.
I believe championships
13
or 4. I knew it was 13.
The argument is, and this is why I was fascinated to hear what you guys thought, because the argument is Chuck Kyle, who was the head coach of St. Ignatius for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they're, by the way, probably going to make the playoffs at 1-9. It's Region 1 is a whole other thing. Look at
it is.
But I mean, look at Tim Goodwin. His dad, Bill, was a terrific coach at Allen East. He had over 200 wins. Goodwin comes in this year at 294. They get that 300th win in week 6. But again, go back and look at what Marion Local was. Historically, they had 1 playoff appearance in like 50 years before he got there. They have 13 titles in the last 24 years. And they've been a runner-up 4 or 5 times. The last time they lost, that team went on to win state, and I was there that night in 2020 when they lost to New Bremen. But they play a team this weekend that I think the best coaching matchup you can have is Chip Otten and Tim Goodwin.
Oh, agree.
Because as close as they are, they're polar opposites in how they kind of go about their business. You know, Coldwater traditionally has been a little flashy because they've had kids that people talk about with baseball, and they've had the Harleberg boys, and they've had Brody Hoying. They've had all these kids. But Marion's got John Dirksen to kind of fall back on, but they have Peyton Oddie, and they have, you know, all these kids that, you know, maybe going to play at Findlay. I know a couple have gone up there, but they're not, you know, Ross Holman showing up at Ohio State, but they just get it done.
Yeah.
And, you know, this matchup is one of my favorites every year, but I guarantee that Tim Goodwin looks at that and says, 190? We didn't get to 200? And I guarantee you he can pinpoint the exact game in the day the last time they gave up 40.
I mean, I don't even argue with this. I think it's hands down.
Incredible.
Tim Goodwin. Chip Otten is definitely up there as one of the better ones of all time. But to build a program, like you said, for Marion Local, from what it was to where it is now, you know, basically that averages 12.5 wins a year.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Like, for a team to actually average more wins than what your actual scheduled games are per season is just, it's unthinkable.
It is.
I mean,
and the fact they've won 41 in a row.
Right.
That
Which
too.
is crazy because the last time they'd won 43 in a row, it was a team they played this weekend that ended that streak. The last two times that Marion has had massive streaks, they've been ended by Coldwater.
That's just crazy. You can't
I'm not saying it happens this weekend. I just find it fascinating that your nemesis is always there.
Right.
And you look at the last 15 games, and I would be willing to bet you they're probably 15 of the best 100 games in the state because 3 times it's come down to a game-winning field goal. And again, 4 times someone's walked away with a house payment.
Tell us more about this 50-50, Michael, now that we're on this. This was always been intriguing to us.
Yeah.
We've talked about it.
You can quite literally, again, with, you know, the last couple of years with COVID and everything being down, I think last year somebody walked away with only $6,000. I think, if I remember hearing it right. You know, it's been over $10,000. It's a legendary thing down there.
Yeah, right.
They sell them at McSober's in Coldwater. I know has a big deal with it this week. All of the schools in the area have friends at these programs. Like, I try to get Don Kemper, the commissioner of the MAC, one year to buy me some. I said, I'll Venmo you $10 right now. Yes. He said, well, yours is probably not going to win. I said, now imagine if he would have won, right? How would I know if it was my tickets or his tickets?
Right.
But the story down there about the lady who did not leave the game was famous because they quite literally have it in cash. And as I understand the story, the cop is in the concession stand sitting with a duffel bag full of cash like he's Ted DiBiase. Right? But what he doesn't know is he's Virgil in this scenario because he's got to wait for Ted to come back. And from the story that I heard, she came back after the game, was like, all right, let's go. And he's like, do you want me to take you to your house? Because the bank's closed. Now imagine the teller at the bank the next morning. Here you go. Oh, Ethel.
14,000 $1 bills.
Right. You assume there's some 5s or 10s in there, right? Yeah. Maybe a stray 50. But I would have slept like this. Or the Scrooge McDuck thing. I would have tried to figure out how to build a huge unnecessary temple to it.
That's crazy.
But it's just, that's amazing. And that is what I love about small school football.
Yeah. The Marion Local thing, what amazes me, and we've talked about this several times throughout the year, and you know, we talk about like Fairview, you know, they're down a little bit this year. Edgerton, they're down a little bit this year. You know, it's that small school football. You know, you gotta deal with the kids that you get, and you got to rebuild. You got your rebuilding years. Marion Local is a Division 7 school, guys. They don't have to rebuild every year.
You know what a rebuilding year is? When you finish second.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So they're finding a way to get that done, and I'm not sure how they're doing it, but I mean, they're a public school, correct?
Yeah, I believe I read an article.
Some people don't think that, but yes.
I read an article, I think it was about a couple months ago, but I think it was an article on Marion Local and their strength and conditioning program of how they get so many kids to come out. They'll come out before school, they'll work out, but they get these kids so committed to athletics, you know, and on top of that, they still go out. They may go farm, they may go work a job, these kids are just so well-rounded and they're so invested in their school and community. And I think that's just the amazing thing that you see, especially down in Mack County, is all the small-town families with the good values. And I think you really see that down there. And it pays off for all those schools. Look at all the state championships that conference has. So
Yeah, and they've been successful long before like open enrollment started to play a big role in it. You know what I mean? It's like here lately, you hear the grumblings of Liberty Center. Everybody goes to Liberty Center because they want to play football. So people are open enrolling to Liberty Center. But, it's, Marion Local's been good for a long time.
Yeah. So I like that one a lot. And,
they have 150 overall state championships, by the way. You're good if you can put it on your website and then break it down. I mean, 41 state football championships of the 150. And
Crazy.
3 of those came in 1 year. It's the only time it's ever happened.
And I believe someone said, I don't even think the Green Meadows Conference has one.
No.
I don't believe they had some teams that had Ayersville that was close.
Ayersville and Wayne Trace.
Wayne Trace were the only 2 that made it state champion.
State
NWC
semifinals.
just has Grove with Blaine Mag, but that's just crazy. The joke is always it's easier to win a state title than it is to win the MAC.
That's probably accurate.
Yeah.
What?
Defiance won 2 in a year. They won the basketball and baseball the same year.
Yeah, 2015, I think.
Well, I'm talking state championship just for football in the Green Meadows Conference.
Oh, yeah.
That's
well,
what
he
I
was
talking
saying
about.
that they won
gotcha.
all 3.
Yeah,
Defiance won 2 that 1 year.
Yeah, that was a pretty
No,
impressive.
meaning 3 teams from the MAC won a
3
football
different
season.
divisions.
Division-wise. Sevens.
Yep.
Which is insane. There's 7 divisions. You won 3 of them.
That's crazy. That's nuts for the same.
Probably could have won more, but they don't have teams in Division 1.
That's always the joke. They didn't have anything above D5, so they won 5, 6, and 7.
Well, that concludes our hot takes there. So, again, we like when you guys send them in. These are all fan-submitted, so we appreciate that. And we appreciate BSN Sports as well for sponsoring that segment. It's always a good time. So, last little segment here before we go to break. Matthew's breakout players for Week 10. Matthew's offensive breakout player of the week is Cade Brenner, quarterback from Archbold. Reasoning is Brian has really struggled to stop passing offense teams as Fairview, PH, and Wason all put great passing numbers against Brian, so I expect a big week out of Brenner. My defensive player of the week from Matthew is linebacker Houston Miranda from Patrick Henry.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, Keith's guy. Reasoning is Swan has really struggled on offense, and they've scored double digits in only 2 games, so I expect a big week from Miranda. So, again, Matthew has picked out some great players throughout the year, and even Joey Geisinger last week. He had an interception,
Yes, he did,
and I think he had a sack as well, so he had a big game for the Rams. But we'll go ahead. We'll take a break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Nicely Rentals and Storage is your go-to venue for graduation parties, birthdays, weddings, and more. Also offering vehicle storage, table and chair rentals, and U-Haul equipment. Located in Ayersville, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-439-6177.
Trueland Equipment and Salesman Lauren Brown are your go-to for John Deere equipment in Archbold, Ohio. Mowers, compact tractors, skid loaders, and more. Your sales expert on commercial turf and CCE sales. Give Lauren a call today at 419-445-1565.
Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we have Week 10 game predictions and closing thoughts coming up. So we'll go ahead and we'll reel out the game predictions and a little bit of a preview of the teams for week number 10. All right, first game we're looking at Archbold 8-1 at Bryan 5-4. Bryan's coming off a tough loss to Wason. You know, Bryan has a lot of talent with Sam Harold and Jace Kepler at quarterback and running back. But Archbold, they're playing really well. Ever since that Liberty Center loss, they've really picked up things, and I don't really see anyone touching them here in the last half. So I'm going Archbold.
Definitely Archbold. Coach Dominic has the streaks rolling.
Blue Streaks.
Blue Streaks for me.
I think Will Ferrell said it best when he said we're going streaking.
There you go. And Bryce and Matthew both had Archbold as well, so Archbold across the board. Next game, Evergreen 3-6 at Delta 3-6, and this game was kind of an intriguing matchup. Evergreen's coming off a win against Swan, and Evergreen has the potential. You know, they put the beating down on Eden early in the season, but at the same time, we know, or not Eden, I'm sorry, Elmwood, and Elmwood also beat Eden, so kind of throwing that in there for some reference, but I think Delta gets it done. You know, they played Bryan tough earlier in the season, and I really like the Panthers in this matchup.
Yes, Delta, the old school wing T, taking Delta.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Delta here.
Delta for me.
I would like to make a Delta Dawn joke here, but I'm going to choose that my friend John Burke, who used to be the basketball coach at St. Mary's, now the superintendent there. That's enough for me to pick Delta.
Bryce and Matthew both had Delta, so Delta across the board from everyone. Next game, Wason 6-3 at Liberty Center 9-0. And we've talked a lot about Liberty Center and what kind of gauntlet it is to get through them. Wason's riding high. We talked about them kind of getting over that hump on the roller coaster, getting a big win, and they did against Bryan last week. But I still don't think that's enough to get past the Tigers. I'm going Liberty Center.
Liberty Center big.
Yeah, it's another trip out behind the woodshed. Liberty Center's going to take this one big.
Yep, Liberty Center.
Yeah.
Bryce had Liberty Center and Matthew had Liberty Center. So
What? That's crazy.
that's crazy thought. I know. Next game, Swan 0-9 at Patrick Henry 7-2. Swan, they've had their rough patches. Patrick Henry, they're playing without their quarterback and Nash Meyer, but we saw them put up a good fight against Archbold, and I like their chances in this one, especially being at home. So I think Patrick Henry wins big.
Yep, Pats.
Patrick Henry.
Patrick Henry.
Swan people already won't like me after Thursday when I call their girls' soccer team losing to OG, so I might as well keep the trend going and pick Patrick Henry.
And Bryce had Patrick Henry and Matthew had Patrick Henry. Next game, Edgerton 2-7 at Antwerp 8-1. We got a chance to see Edgerton play last week. Their kids play tough. They really do. Coach Flagle's doing a nice job there. But Antwerp's Antwerp. They've got athletes all over the field. They take care of business, and I think they win this one big.
Yep, playoff tune-up game for Antwerp, taking the Archers.
Antwerp.
Antwerp for me.
I'm going to pick a road team at some point, but this is not that game.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Antwerp. So Antwerp across the board from everyone. Next game, Fairview 2-7 at Ayersville 7-2. And we kind of talked, with Ayersville having the loss to Tornkeneven, how does Ayersville kind of respond to that? And Ayersville's been running the ball really well, but Fairview's been making a little bit of noise. Yeah. They've been playing well during the last stretch of the season here, but I think Ayersville gets it done.
It's one of those games. I'm interesting to see what the halftime score is when we give our score update. But I think Coach Mickey has the Pilots getting ready for Week 11, taking the Pilots.
Yep, Ayersville.
I think the injury is going to give them a little bit of a fight. So yeah, I'm going with Ayersville.
Yeah, we'll go with Ayersville.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Ayersville. Next game, Hicksville 1-8 at Tenora 6-3. I think this one, Tenora's firing on all cylinders right now. Their defense is playing lights out. They really developed their passing game, especially over the last few games with Dominic Graziani doing an excellent job. I think they handle the Aces, and I think they come out with a win. I'm going Tenora.
Rams should win big, get out of there injury-free.
Yep, that's the important thing is Tenora coming out injury-free here, going into the playoffs. So taking Tenora.
I was saying it perfect, guys. Rams.
I'm not trying to pick against a team that pays me, so I'm going to pick Tenora.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Tenora as well. So Tenora from everyone. Next game, this is a big matchup, and this was almost the NW Sports Game of the Week, but it's a close second. That's Paulding 5-4 at Wayne Trace 4-5. This one, you're going to get the best out of both teams because this game is everything on the line for this season. Obviously, both teams are out of GMC title contention, but whoever wins gets a playoff berth. But at the end of the day, I think Wayne Trace just has enough athletes and they have enough to get it done. I'm going Wayne Trace, but it wouldn't surprise me if Paulding pulls the upset here.
Yeah, this is a 50-50 game. Taking the Raiders.
Wayne Trace for me.
Guys, you know how bad this is getting for me to go down through here and pick the same games you guys same teams you guys have. I seriously just want to pick Paulding just to be different. The only reason I went Wayne Trace is because they're playing at home, but I know how Wayne Trace turns the ball over, it seems like. So I'm still going to go with the Raiders.
Weird Al used to have this thing called Dare to be Different, and I have a soft spot for teams that used to be in the Northwest Conference when I was growing up. So yeah. I'm going to pick Paulding. I don't think they can play as bad as they have the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, very valid. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they do pull this one out.
Plus, we're not real popular in Haviland anyways.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Wayne Trace. So Wayne Trace from everyone except for Michael. Next game, Ottawa Hills 8-1 at Eden 6-3. Ottawa Hills has really dominated the TAC the last couple of years. Eden's coming off a tough loss to Elmwood. I think Ottawa Hills takes this one. I think they win by a fair margin.
Green Bears.
Ottawa Hills.
Ottawa Hills.
I'm going to pick Ottawa Hills because I'm more scared of Green Bears than I am of anything else.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Ottawa Hills. Next game, Hilltop 1-8 at Montpelier 6-3. Williams County matchup here, but Montpelier is playing the best ball they've played in quite some time. I'm going the Locomotives.
Coach Robinson and Locos.
Locomotives.
Locos.
I'm fascinated by everything you guys talked about Montpelier tonight and what could happen to them with this win. I'm going to pick them and see what happens with the chaos theory.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Montpelier, so Montpelier from everyone. Next game, Reading, Michigan, 2-6 at North Central, 8-1. Obviously, don't really know much about Reading, Michigan, being a Michigan team, but North Central's rolling lately, so I'm going with the Eagles.
North Central.
Yeah, I'm going to go with North Central here.
North Central.
They're going to call Drew Pasteur and ask him about Michigan again, see what he knows, but I don't see them winning this game. I'm not going to pick a team from Michigan.
No.
And Bryce and Matthew both had North Central. A couple more games here left on the 11-man slate. Defiance 6-3 at Ottawa-Glandorf, 1-8. I think someone said it earlier. This could be a trap game. I think it was you, Michael, that Ottawa-Glandorf.
I also have a soft spot for OGs. So
yeah, that's true too. But
that's probably part of it.
But it is. I mean, I think it's a fair point because Ottawa-Glandorf's much better than that 1-8 record. They're playing for Coach Schreiner's 200th win, I believe, too. A lot to play for, but I think Defiance gets it done at the end of the day.
Bulldogs.
Bulldogs.
I'm just going to play the I just like to be different than everyone card and pick OG at home. I hope Peyton Coolman has a big night. Obviously, that doesn't go out for you guys. But I have to go to Ottawa on Saturday, so I would like to see a happy group of people over there.
Fair enough.
But it wouldn't surprise me if Defiance won.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Defiance. Next game, Van Wert 6-3 at Elida 5-4. This is another interesting matchup. I kind of thought back and forth on this. Van Wert's kind of struggled with things here and there, especially with the turnover battle. But I really do. I think Van Wert gets on track, and I think they win this game big at Elida.
Yeah, Cougars.
Van Wert.
I picked Van Wert.
I saw Elida last weekend. I've seen Van Wert. If Van Wert does not win this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns, I will be shocked. Just because they have enough athletes to be able to run the ball. Elida couldn't stop the run last weekend, and as I understand it, that's a pretty big problem if you're going to win a game.
Yeah. Yes.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Van Wert. Next game, Napoleon 5-4 at Southview 6-3. Another game that could have been NWO Sports Game of the Week. This is for title contention for the Cardinal Division of the Northern Lakes League. I like the way Napoleon is playing right now. I know Southview 6-3, but I think Napoleon gets it done. They have all the momentum in the world, and that propels them into the playoffs. So I'm going the Wildcats.
You're going to be different this one. I took Southview.
Yeah, I'm taking Southview too, so not too different.
Yeah, I was originally putting Napoleon in there, and then I changed my mind. I went Southview.
Well, just to even it out, I'm going to pick Napoleon. I'm going to buy what you're saying.
There we go. Bryce had Napoleon, and Matthew had Southview, so we're pretty split along the middle in that one. Next game is going to be the NWO Sports Game of the Week, and that's Bluffton 9-0 at Columbus Grove 7-2. This is going to be a powerhouse matchup. I'm excited for this one. I believe there's going to be a good amount of media coverage there as well, and it's tough to win at Columbus Grove as well. So I think at the end of the day, I think Columbus Grove, I think they get it done, but I think it's going to be tight.
I took the Pirates in Bluffton.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me, too. I'm going to stick with Bluffton.
Grove averages 7 yards per play this season. Bluffton has not faced an offense in a while like this team. They've outscored opponents 111-35 in the first quarter. I think they're going to be able to get a touchdown in the first quarter, and everybody's going to say, wait, what's going on here on Twitter? I like Grove at home because, again, Clymer's an impossibly hard place to win. Andy Schaefer has been there. He's got a terrific 1-2. I just think Grove, having been there the last couple of years, is the difference maker in this game.
A great atmosphere over there.
It is.
Honestly. Yep.
It's great food right down the street, too.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Bluffton. So actually, Michael and myself were the only two that had Columbus Grove. So
like you said, I think you could flip a coin.
Yeah, I think you could,
surprised
too.
either way.
Yep. Last 11-man game here, and this one's for Michael. A little bit in his neck of the woods. Lima Bath 4-5 at St. Mary's 5-4. I like the way St. Mary's is similar to Napoleon in the fact that they have been on fire. They're on a 5-game winning streak. Really kind of come into their own. I feel like they've kind of found their identity as well. I think they take this one, especially being at home, so I'm going St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, no apostrophe.
Exactly. You don't understand how big of a deal that is in my life.
We pointed that out a couple of weeks ago.
They're not a Catholic school, and they're not a private school. St. Mary's was actually named for the river, but I digress.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with St. Mary's with no apostrophe.
Yes.
St. Mary's for me.
Oh, do I get to pick St. Mary's too?
I don't know.
Here's
We'll
one
see.
for you. St. Mary's won the last 7 of the series by a combined 268-35.
Ooh.
I think this could be a blowout. Bath's got some issues right now with their offense. They've got some injuries. St. Mary's is getting a couple of guys back. They're putting some younger guys into roles that they can excel at. I don't think St. Mary's is looking forward to potentially getting a home game next week. However, they are going to be white hot going to the playoffs next week at 6-4.
And Bryce and Matthew both had St. Mary's, so St. Mary's across the board.
Good call.
That's right. Okay,
I feel like Van Wert. Van Wert doesn't like everybody picking them.
Yeah, they don't. We've had some complaints. Every time we all picked Van Wert in a game that they seem to lose.
You'll never get invited to the victory wagon then. Shout out to Eric McCracken.
A couple 8-man games here. Waldron, Michigan, 2-6 at Stryker, 1-7. Stryker has seen, a tough season overall. They've been really plagued by some injuries as well. I've been told a lot of key players on that team, and that's, I think, contributed to some of their losses this season. So because of that, and, guys have not been healthy for Stryker, I'm going Waldron, Michigan.
Waldron.
I'm going to go with Stryker just because I like the, right up the street team.
I'm going Stryker because they're at home.
Yeah, I'm going Stryker because they're not from Michigan.
Hey, there you go, too.
And
we won that battle.
Yeah. And Bryce had Stryker, and Matthew had Waldron, Michigan. And then the last game here, Holgate 7-1 at Morenci, Michigan 2-5. Holgate is coming off a big win against Chalker. Ever since, the only team that stopped them is Toledo Christian, but Holgate's been taking care of business, so I'm going Holgate.
Tigers.
Yeah, Tigers.
Tigers and Xavier McCord.
I don't even know where Morenci, Michigan is, so I'm not going to pick them. They did have an 18-year-old mayor at one point, though, by the way.
Holy
Just on a quick look up, but I'm not picking them. I'm picking the Tigers.
Talk about random thoughts, Keith. Random facts.
There you go.
Keith's kind of our random fact guy.
I know. You should hear the
I've been outdone.
conversations that we have about these things.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Holgate, so Holgate from everyone. All
Just
right.
imagine did you know this? Oh, well, did you know that? Oh, no, yeah, but do you know this?
But it's also taking place at like 12, 1 o'clock.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
Yes.
it's even dumber.
All right. Well, guys, we're on to closing thoughts. So what are your closing thoughts going into Week 10?
Good luck to all the teams that are fighting for playoff contention. Those that are already locked into playoffs, stay healthy this week, but don't lose sight of what you're there for this week as well. And prepare for next week.
Tony?
I'm just excited. It's hard to believe that we're walking down the tunnel here to the last game of the season. So, but yeah, just, like you just said, get out there, last game you get a chance to see your team go play. Get out there and watch them. If, they got next week to play yet, then might be the last home game. So I know Tenora's got senior night. So, get out there and enjoy the games.
Yeah, for us, I was going to kind of say that for all your seniors out there, just enjoy your Friday night. If it's your last one and you're not going to make the playoffs, just soak it all in. If you're taking a bus ride, soak in the bus ride there. Just taking the whole Friday, because most of you guys won't ever put the pads on again. So this is the last time. Just enjoy it, win or lose.
Yeah, that's something too. I went and played at college. But there's nothing quite
Look
like
at you bragging.
No,
Get your own show.
No, not saying that. The point I'm trying to get at is there's nothing quite like Friday Night Lights.
Amen.
Putting on the pads, putting on the jersey,
On
going
Saturday
out.
afternoon lights.
No, but going out to play for your community. To see all your grandparents, your moms, your dads, cousins, everyone go out there support you. There's nothing quite like it. So again, piggybacking off Keith, just go out there, play your hearts out, because you're really not going to get another opportunity like it. Yep. Michael?
I had this whole thing planned about seniors and their last time.
Sorry,
right?
stole your
the
thunder.
coolest thing, by the way, I don't know if you guys get to see it or if anybody does it, but St. Mary's does the very last time. And by the way, they're also going to win this weekend because they're 24-3 all time at this new stadium. And it's so cool to watch the seniors walk. They go arm in arm from one goal line to the other and do a walk. And of course now, 8,000 moms with their cameras and they're photographers, but they have some great ones. But that's a cool thing for me to be able to watch and get to see the band kids do it all arm in arm, and they pretty much go all the way across the field. But it really is, it's a neat and bittersweet thing when we get to Week 10, because I know I have a lot of kids that I've gotten fortunate to call over the years that I won't get to see on the football field again. Yeah, basketball, but that comes to an end, baseball, whatever. But, soak that in. And I just want to say, as someone who's a big fan of the show, long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm thrilled to be on. I've had a blast, and I hope we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's been a good time. But, overall, I'm excited to go into Week 10 and jumpstart into the playoffs. So, well, that concludes our podcast, and we'd like to thank all of our sponsors, 3Chord, BSN Sports, Jim Garris, Bat and Stevens Body Shop, Tenor Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, NWO Basketball, The Drop Zone Pizzeria, Crystal Vasquez of Amerimade Realty, Optimal Performance Fitness, Nicely Storage and Rentals, The Thunderdome, and Truland Equipment and Lauren Brown. We'd also like to give a special thanks to Jeff Batt for allowing us to use his amazing new facility here at Bat and Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast. Stay tuned for the next NWO Sports podcast in the near future, and thanks for watching.